Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody out to the first interim meeting of the Joint Agriculture Committee. Glad you have it all. You're here with us today. You've made it. I feel like we're in a lecture hall, so I hope there's a lot less lecturing of us to you, but we are legislators, so we'll see how that plays out. Just like to go over a little housekeeping here. We do have rules of decorum. So if any of you, this is your first time testifying for the committee, the way it goes is you will come up, present your name. All dialogue goes through the chairman. I will then recognize you to speak, and we'll keep it going that way between the chairman and members of the committee so that we're not getting into any back and forth or anything contentious like that. We avoid personal attacks. We just talk about the policies, about the bills. And just remind you to turn your cell phones down to silent so we don't have any interruptions that way. And with that, I think we're ready for the roll.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. This is roll call for Thursday, June 11th, 2026. Senator Crago.
Excused.
Senator Love.
Excused.
Senator McEwen.
Here.
Senator Pearson. Here. Representative Davis. Representative Fornstrom.
Here.
Representative Johnson.
Here.
Representative Ottman. Here. Representative Provenza. Representative Schmid.
Excused.
Representative Strzok.
Here.
Here.
Co-Chairman Ide.
Here.
Chairman Banks.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. So the first order of business this morning is livestock pregnancy examinations. I'll just preface it with this. We've been getting some pretty nasty emails about this, but I just want to let everybody know this is not any way or any form an attack on our veterinarians, not whatsoever. We were presented with a problem, and we are just trying to go through the motions of solving that problem in a different way. This discussion is in no way or form demeaning any work of our veterinarians whatsoever. So we look forward to the discussion. Glad you're here to participate in that discussion. And so we'll move forward with that first order of business, livestock pregnancy examinations. Is there anything LSO wants to preface about this?
Chairman Banks, I did have a very short memo on the
Okay.
on the Practice Act. If you'd like me to go over it, I
Sure.
can do that.
Thank
Okay.
you, Anna.
I'll come right up there. Just give me 1 second. Good morning, Chairman, members of the committee. Anna Johnson, Staff Attorney, LSO. I do have a very short memo in your packets, which is basically an overview of the Wyoming Veterinary Practice Act as it pertains to pregnancy testing of cattle. So the memorandum briefly provides an overview of the Practice Act, and it goes over the practice of veterinary medicine as it's defined in part as including the diagnosis, prognosis, or treatment of a physical condition of any animal, which would include pregnancy testing, and to physiologically examine or correct sterility or infertility, or to render advice or recommendation with regard to any of the above for any animal for a fee or other compensation. The Practice Act requires the veterinarian to have a doctor's degree in veterinary medicine and to be licensed through the Board of Veterinary Medicine. The Act also requires that no one but a licensed veterinarian may practice veterinary medicine in Wyoming. Now, there are a few exceptions to that rule, one of them being that the owner of an animal, the owner's employees, or any livestock operator and the operator's employees may care for and treat any animal belonging to the owner in any manner desired by the owner. And with the caveat that pregnancy testing by a non-veterinarian does not explicitly appear to fit under that exception, and it's also unclear whether a non-veterinarian doing the test could be compensated for that action. A veterinarian may be disciplined by the board for having professional association with or employing any person practicing veterinary medicine unlawfully. And furthermore, any person who violates the act is guilty of a misdemeanor. And the board or any citizen of the state may bring an action to enjoin that person from practicing veterinary medicine without a license. That's about the gist of the memo. If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Anna. Appreciate you doing that research for us. Any questions for Anna? Okay, thank you.
you.
Appreciate it. With that, we'll next have the Wyoming Board of Veterinary Medicine. If we have representatives of that organization here. Are they online, Katie?
Joanne Reed is online.
Oh, okay. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Can you hear me okay? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Joanne Reed. I am the administrator for the A&I Professional Licensing Boards. I am sitting in for the board's executive director, Kylie Dorr, while she's out on maternity leave. I'm not necessarily here to testify on this matter per se. I'll leave that to the experts. I believe that we do have our the board's vice president waiting, hopefully. I'm just following along to ensure that any directives of the committee are passed along to the board, and I can provide some numbers to the committee. Currently, the state licenses 763 veterinarians, with 380 of those with a Wyoming address. 21 artificial insemination technicians, with 18 of those in Wyoming, and pre-embryo transfer technicians that are all in Wyoming. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that the committee might have.
Thank you. I'm going to take a short pause here. I don't know if that's something in this room but we're having a really hard time hearing the testimony online. Do we have oh, it is on the other end? Okay. Thank you. Any questions, committee? Okay, thank you. I appreciate you being here, taking the time to be with us. I believe she said the vice chair was in the room. If they want to testify, if not, we can move on. Oh, they're also online. Oh, yes, Representative Ottman.
Thank you for that. I think she gave some pretty pertinent numbers, and I did not hear any of them or understand any of them. If somebody could just
Okay.
kind of give a real quick synopsis.
Could you try and fix your mic somehow? We could hardly hear you.
Is that any better?
Yes, yes. Committee, does that sound better so far? Okay.
My apologies, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully that will stay as long as I don't move anything. You asked that the numbers be repeated that I gave?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, there are currently 763 licensed veterinarians in Wyoming, with 380 of those listing a Wyoming address. We have 21 artificial insemination technicians, with 18 of those in Wyoming, and 3 embryo transfer technicians, all in Wyoming.
Did you get that, Representative Ottman? Yes, you're welcome. Any further questions, committee? Okay, thank you. Appreciate your testimony. Yes, Katie.
And Mr. Chairman, I have Dr. Osborne online.
Okay, Dr. Osborne, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your time. I am here currently at the moment representing the Board of Veterinary Medicine for the state of Wyoming. The testimony that myself and I believe my colleague, Dr. Odakoven, is here to testify for the board as well, and potentially our state veterinarian as well. Can everybody hear me? Can the committee hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So, I've been a private practitioner here in the state for almost a couple decades now, and a member of the Wyoming Veterinary Medical Board for a few years now, and was nominated by our previous state veterinarian, Dr. Jim Logan. Our role, obviously, as the members of the board, and the board is to safeguard the public for public safety. Obviously, we verify licenses, approved licenses. We have a role in writing the rules, and we have a role, obviously, in speaking to you folks today about the Practice Act itself. I do want to emphasize the importance of our role as board members and our oversight of our colleagues, those folks that are practicing veterinary medicine. Obviously, with our mandate to serve in the public interest and for public safety, it's very important that we have that oversight over our colleagues, but also individuals who are practicing veterinary medicine without a license. We have the ability to review medical records, to speak to complainants that have complaints regarding our veterinarians and those who are practicing without a license. And I do have some concerns as a board member regarding the ability of potentially lay individuals performing what is, in my opinion, pregnancy diagnosis without a license and without any oversight, specifically in regards to the interest of the public and the clients with which they are performing those services for. We as a board, we are going through on a weekly basis, line by line, paragraph by paragraph, and definition by definition, and working on updating the Wyoming Veterinary Practice Act so that we can make recommendations to the legislature so that act can be updated and modernized. But our recommendation as a board is that pregnancy diagnosis, pregnancy testing still be performed by a licensed veterinarian within the state of Wyoming for multiple reasons. And I know that my colleagues later today will go over a lot of those particular reasons that we believe that should be done by a licensed veterinarian. But so as we update that, we're working on updating the Practice Act. One of the things that we are updating is to make sure our recommendation to the board, or to the legislature, excuse me, is that pregnancy is a diagnosis and therefore falls under the Practice Act and should be performed by a licensed veterinarian who has oversight by the Wyoming Veterinary Medical Board.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony and for being here with us. Any questions, committee? Dr. Osborne. Go ahead, Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, as you all go over this, your Practice Act, when was the last time it was reviewed? Just curious. And also, once you go over it, then your board then submits those recommendations to the legislature in a bill, or how does that work to get that? And does it go into statute?
Go ahead, Dr. Osborne.
Yeah, and some of those questions, I might have to defer to Joanne. But yes, so we are going through that, making edits and recommendations. Then that will go before the legislature to be put into statute. With regards to the last time that the act was opened up and edited, it's been quite some time. I don't know the exact date. Like I said, I've been on the board for a couple of years. But with the discussions that we've had in the group that is working on editing or revising the Practice Act, there's been multiple discussions that it's been quite some time. So.
Yep. Go ahead, Chairman Ide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Osborne, you know, after we put this on the agenda, got a lot of people chiming in on this, and vets and others. It seems like there's a lot of lay people that do this already, sort of a non-compliance of the Practice Act. And it seems like that's sort of normal out there presently, the way things operate. Can you comment on that as far as lay people just they're already doing it and it's really not being enforced? Thank you.
Dr. Osborne.
Yeah, and we haven't had any cases that, since I've been on the board, that have been brought to the board's attention regarding lay palpators. So there haven't been any cases that I've been a part of in the last several years that I've been a part of the board. There is an issue, obviously, with lay palpators that are currently, practicing veterinary medicine in the state of Wyoming. And I think that, it is the veterinarian in the area's responsibility to potentially file a complaint regarding those lay palpators. I think that there may be a hesitancy by some of my colleagues to do so because there can be some pushback with regards to that by the clients that you're currently serving that may be using a lay palpator, but using you for regulatory services or emergency services. My experience in Northern California, where a lay palpator was turned in by the local veterinarians, there was a lot of pushback against that particular veterinarian. And so I think there is some of that sentiment that's out there. Obviously, that decreases the complaints and the enforcement. And therefore, there are lay palpators that are out there practicing. But I don't think that is good enough justification to take that out of statute, because if there is ultimately an issue associated with that service that is being provided, then there is absolutely no recourse going forward for either the producer, or veterinarians or other producers within that area. So.
Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just have a question. What do you think of allowing people to do this under the oversight of a veterinarian? I know years back, and we've preg checked our sheep for years, but years back, and my dad was a part of this group, preg checking sheep around the state because there really were no vets that did that at the time. And they were able to do it, I guess, pretty much legally under the oversight of a veterinarian. So I was wondering what you thought about that. And then I wanted to address what you were saying about preg checking as far as it being a diagnosis. Because in some ways I feel like pregnancy testing is also a technique. And like I said, we've preg checked our sheep for years and years just because there really was nobody to go to come and preg check our sheep. They didn't have, you know, the chutes and the trailer and all of the things. And so I'm just wondering what you think about that oversight, maybe approach under a veterinarian. Thank you.
Dr.
Yeah.
Osborne?
Well, and I know that the Wyoming Practice Act doesn't explicitly allow for producers to perform their own pregnancy diagnosis for their own livestock. But you know, and perhaps that is something that needs to be clarified in some of the edits going forward. But the oversight, it is difficult. And as Joanne, you know, laid out the numbers for you folks, you know, a little over 700 total licensees in the state of Wyoming, 300 are residents of Wyoming. It would be difficult for us to have oversight or observation or direct supervision over that particular procedure. I would say potentially not as a member of the board, but as a private practitioner, a lot of my business relies on the routine procedures that are performed, which include pregnancy diagnosis. And so in order for my business to be sustainable going forward, you know, it is a vitally important service economically to my practice going forward so that I can be present within the state, continue to provide my regulatory duties and my emergency duties. So although we are spread very, very thin, I think direct oversight would be difficult, potentially clarifying within the act and the statute going forward as to the questions that were brought up in the memorandum regarding making it more explicit, you know, that producers can perform those procedures on their own livestock. Maybe a way to look at that.
Follow up, Senator Pearson?
Thank you, Chairman. How many of the 763 vets that are practicing in the state of Wyoming are large animal vets?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have the specific numbers on that. And that is part of some of the changes that the board is trying to make within our rules so that when a licensee is applying for a license, we can potentially ask some more clarifying questions regarding what services they ultimately are going to provide within the state. As it is now, in the way that our rules are written, you know, we don't collect that data. I know that the Wyoming Veterinary Medical Association is working to potentially change some of the rules with the board so that we can collect that information regarding what type of practice each individual resident veterinarian in the state of Wyoming is actually currently practicing. So we don't have a means yet to collect that data.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I just have another question. I'm just going to give you all of them at once. I'm just wondering, as far as veterinary school, I know that you know, it's tough to find somebody that wants to take over a large practice. And I know to get into veterinary school, you have to have pretty good grades, things like that, you know, and as we know, I would say a lot of ag children maybe don't excel in school. At some point, would there be a way to maybe attract veterinarians by maybe not making the bar so high to get into vet school? Because we know that a lot of these ranch kids, things like that, you know, they know animals. they know livestock, they know, and they can learn, it doesn't have to be necessarily academic, if that makes sense. And so I'm just wondering, as far as vet school, if maybe that would be a way to attract more people to get into vet school who really love animals and really want to help animals, but maybe don't make the mark in the academic realm or as far as grades or GPAs.
Dr. Osborne?
Yeah, I guess I'm speaking to you as an ag kid. So, I grew up on a ranch. My father is a first generation rancher, which, made it a little bit easier for me to want to pursue veterinary medicine because, he himself leased ranches. We didn't own a ranch. And so the writing was pretty clear on the wall that there wasn't going to be enough income within ranching for me to stay within the family business. And so I was able to, go to vet school. I wasn't personally the best at academics myself. I did fortunately excel in college and in vet school after a pretty terrible high school career. Um, and so I think that the opportunity exists, but I would hate to being a ranch kid that got my act together, made it through vet school, and understood the difficulties that arise as trying to make it through vet school. I would hate to lower the bar, and that's part of why I'm testifying today and talking about pregnancy diagnosis in cattle. I don't think the procedure itself is particularly difficult. It's not hard to learn. It's not particularly challenging. It does take a lot of practice. You need, to be very proficient at it. You need several thousand head under your belt to be very good at it. But once you've learned the skill, it's not particularly hard to attain that and to keep that skill. But the difficulty comes in when the diagnosis is not pregnant and when the animal is open or not pregnant. That's where the difficulty comes in, and that's where the education of veterinary medicine is so vitally important. And I know that my colleagues here later will give testimony as to the diseases that we're concerned about. But we're also we're talking about brucellosis, trichomoniasis, but we're also, need to have education not only in the diseases that affect fertility, but also, the trace mineral deficiencies that ultimately may arise or the nutritional deficiencies. How do we consult our producers on their vaccine schedule, artificial insemination, synchronization protocols? And as I'm doing my procedure of pregnancy diagnosis in cattle, all of these things are running through my mind. And had I not had the rigorous training of veterinary school and the high bar and the high expectations to meet that, then I wouldn't be able to serve my clients efficiently.
Thank you. I've got a quick question for you, just as far as the board goes. Trying to find a little bit of a lifeline here. So in statute 33-3203, there's some exceptions there, and in Romanet 11, it says any person approved by the board for performing embryo transplants. There's also in 8 about AI. What does the board feel about maybe adding a ruminant under there and kind of having a go-between that says any person approved by the board to perform transrectal palpations?
Yeah,
What would be
and
the
like
board's kind of feeling on that?
yeah, and like I, said a moment ago, the issue does not arise if the pregnancy or the conception rate of a particular herd is high. So our goal for profitability within the industry is somewhere in the mid 90s. If we can hit 93 to 96% conception, having all of those cattle, calve within the first three calving intervals, so within the first 63 days, 3 heat cycles, then the job is pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. We're in there, we're palpating, we're determining that they're pregnant or open. But if that conception rate drops into the 80s or God forbid the 70s, then it ultimately requires the expertise of a veterinarian to be there. We're not just providing a simple service of whether or not an animal is open or pregnant. We're providing a service and consulting regarding the potential problems that may arise. My experience as a young veterinarian in Northern California, one of the early preg checks that we did in the fall, we had a 76% conception rate. And then went in and trick tested the bulls, and over half the bulls had trichomoniasis. And so on this very, very large herd of cattle, about 2,500 head, when we go to preg check on an individual basis of, say, 300 or 350 cows that day, there was literally a semi-truck sitting there waiting to take the open cows to slaughter. And so that's where the role of the veterinarian and the relationship that veterinarian has with each individual producer comes into play and is so critical. And that's just one of the many diseases that affect fertility in cattle, that requires the expertise of the veterinarian to be on site and have that relationship with that producer.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Probably
welcome.
better move on here. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Osborne. Appreciate your testimony. All the
You're
answers to
welcome.
those questions.
You're welcome.
Next, do we have Dr. Hazel online?
Good morning. Yes, we do. Good morning.
Good morning. Go ahead, Dr. Hazel.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I'd just like to expound on a few things, as my colleague just mentioned. Behring Ingelheim just revealed the results of a global survey that highlighted the top 3 responses of overlooked aspects of veterinary care. And these are some of the things that are performed when a veterinarian is on that premise doing herd work. One is uncovering hidden health problems and pain. The second one was protecting food chain safety. And the third is doing surveillance programs to limit spread of disease. That is a huge factor when it comes to regulatory veterinary medicine. As you all know, we have a lot of public grazing land in Wyoming. Whenever we have a disease with any of those herds that are doing common grazing on public lands, it spreads like wildfire. If there is a trichomoniasis issue, or if there is a brucellosis issue, or whatever, when that veterinarian is on that premise performing that herd work, they can pick up on those things, as my colleague just mentioned. But something else that comes into play from a regulatory disease standpoint is a disease right now, and I shouldn't really call it a disease, but an infestation that could cost our industry millions and millions of dollars, that is spreading northward right now. And everybody is aware that that would be New World screwworm. Having a veterinarian there within that herd, they can instantly pick up on the smell of this situation and potentially know where to look whenever they might suspect a screwworm infestation. If you don't have that veterinarian on site and you have just a layperson doing a transrectal exam, they are not necessarily going to pick up on this extremely important issue that is facing our industry right now. Those are the primary comments I had. I would stand for questions. I'd like to leave enough time for my colleagues to express their concern.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any questions for Dr. Hazel? Committee? Okay, doctor, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, with that, I believe we can open up for public testimony. Anybody in the room wants to testify in this bill, please come down. We got some mics here. Feel free to give your testimony, and also we want to be cognizant of everybody's time, so we'll try not to get too repetitive, but please feel free to give your testimony. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, go ahead.
if I could please ask the committee to only have one microphone on at a time and to turn it off when you're done speaking, that would be great for the PBS system.
Okay. Thank you. Committee got that? Thanks, Katie. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, committee, my name is Dustin Taylor and I have a ranch up outside of Meeteetse. We kind of mingle down here in Fremont County as well. Pull up my notes here. Currently in Meeteetse, we have one vet and he splits his time between his clinic in Thermopolis and Meeteetse. Now, our ranch sits probably 30 miles out of Meeteetse. So by the time, if we have to go to Thermopolis, we're about an hour and a half to our vet's office. Sometimes he's lucky enough to be able to get another vet in, maybe one fresh out of college that's just getting a start wanting to come out west. The biggest thing that I see in this is it appears to me the problem is been brought to your guys' attention because of maybe, say, a shortage of vets. I hear a lot of people complaining that they have to plan ahead to preg check. I saw some comments here recently that there was some ranches that had to call ahead 6 months to plan their preg check date. That is an inconvenience, but it probably is a better inconvenience than what I see as an unintended consequence of allowing lay people to preg check cows. In my mind, if you open this up to where anybody can preg check a cow, you're going to take work away from the vets. We already have a shortage of vets, so you're not giving any incentive for someone to move here by taking away the work that they already do. I heard comment this morning already about vets not being available to preg check the sheep, which that is kind of a different industry. I'm not very apprised of what happens in the sheep industry, but in the cattle industry, I have a lot of friends, a lot of connections across the state, and I've never heard a single rancher say that they can't get a vet to preg check their cows. What they're saying is they can't get a vet to preg check their cows when they wait until the week before they want to preg check. And in my mind, the problem just is going to be exacerbated by allowing it to be open to anybody and therefore cutting your vets out of work. And I think that in our situation, the vet that we have, he can sometimes get a vet to come here and help, and a lot of that is dependent on how much preg checking work that they can get in the fall. That's kind of my point on the deal, and I would just hate to see an unintended consequence come as a side effect of opening this up.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Appreciate your testimony. Committee, Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hello, Mr. Taylor. Thank you for coming today. I was wondering, how many head of cows do you have?
You're not supposed to ask that. We run about 400 head of mother cows.
Okay.
We're kind of a mid-sized ranch in our area.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And a follow-up, please.
Yep.
And how many, you have one veterinarian and then he can call, or she can call in help then when it's that time of year, or you make a scheduled appointment to have that done? Is that correct?
Go ahead.
Yes, we call ahead and we probably will be setting our preg check date here pretty quick. It's usually around the same time every year. Now I maybe you maybe have misinterpreted what I said about he can call in extra help. What I meant by that is when the time happens and the right applicant is available, they'll come and help him work for a couple of years, usually is what happens. He'll get someone right out of college. And then it's pretty tough to stay busy in Meeteetse as a vet. So sometimes it's my impression, he hasn't told me this, it's my impression that he probably can't pay enough to keep a full-time vet on board all times. And so when one comes around, they'll stay around until they've built their resume, and then they move on to somewhere else that can pay better.
Thank you. One more follow-up,
Go ahead.
please. Okay, so how many ranches are out in your area that would utilize this vet? And is that veterinarian only large animals?
Go ahead.
My veterinarian is not only large animal, and there are other vets that work in the area. It's not impossible to get a vet, and we are fairly rural. So I would say if I couldn't get my vet on the day that I wanted, it's pretty easy. I can either change my day or call another vet. And being a mid-sized ranch, I'm not one of the big guys that they're wanting to come to. My vet does. He wants to come to, we have a good relationship, but I could get another vet. So the fact of opening this up to where just anybody could come and preg check, I wouldn't utilize the service anyway, because like we've heard from some of the other people that have spoken this morning, I'm not looking for someone just to find my bred cows. I'm looking for someone to diagnose why my cows are open and what am I doing wrong. And we have had brucellosis in our herd, and had we just had someone else come and preg check, if we had the stars aligned and we caught it early. We caught it because of the DSA and bleeding our cows. But had we been on the 3-year program and not caught it the first year or the second year and waited until the 3rd year to bleed our cows, it could have been disastrous for us leading up to that, not knowing what was causing our cows to be open. And I think that a lot of ranches, if they had the devastating open rates, like he was saying, if you're down to only a 75 or 72% breed up in your cows, you may be embarrassed to be going and saying, hey, gosh, my breed up was only 70% this year. If you had the layperson come preg check your cows and you had a 70% breed up, you may be embarrassed to go say that to anybody else. You're going to wait a year and see if you can pick up on what maybe you did wrong. Maybe you feel you didn't feed your cows and they weren't in good enough shape, but your vet would have probably picked up on, well, maybe you have trick, and he's going to diagnose a much bigger problem before you would if you're embarrassed because your first year's or one of your years is a really bad breed up.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, one more.
Okay,
follow-up,
go ahead.
please. And thank you, Mr. Taylor. I appreciate all that information. So basically, you are fortunate to have the opportunity to have a few veterinarians in your area. And then do you, because I don't have cows, so do you all seem to need them at the same time? And the other thing I was wondering is that if you call the veterinarian, and I heard earlier that it was about 350 a day they could do. So if it's like 2 days or 3 days, that you would utilize that veterinarian. And then also, what kind of testing do they do to find out if it's trick or whatever? Do they, are they using to preg check? Are they using one kind of instrument and then they use other instruments if they smell something, or and I know that could take all day to explain all that, but if you could just put that in a nutshell for me, I'd appreciate it.
Go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Chairman, committee, I believe what you're getting into with the disease diagnosis is it's over my head. I guess what I was getting at from that situation is if you have your neighbor come preg check your cows and they don't know what signs to look for, they don't know what the next test to proceed forward with would be, all they're going to do is preg check your cows and say you have a 72% open rate or a breed up. And so they wouldn't have the brain power per se to come up with what would be the next step. Whereas if you have your vet there and he says, well, gosh, your breed up's usually in the 90s, you're down in the 70s, we need to start looking at what the problem is. I don't know exactly all the tests. Blood test is how we picked up brucellosis, or that's how we figured it out. So we caught it before it ever created any kind of issue in our cows anyhow. But I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Further questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Taylor, thanks for being here. It's good to hear. I always like to hear operators' perspective. Couple of things you mentioned that, you wouldn't use a layperson essentially if you had the option, if it was cheaper or something like that. And the previous speaker, Mr. Osborne, Dr. Osborne, mentioned that, the vets have, put in the work, the time, the money, the sweat to get to where they are. And the law to a certain degree, protects the incumbent from competition. If you were in an area that if you couldn't get a certified vet, and that was your only option, what do you think about that? I mean, there's areas I think that they can't schedule something 6 months in advance if they even wanted to. So what would you say to that as far as trying to, I don't know where the numbers of the vets are going to go in Wyoming, and they could get worse potentially. And so looking for options to help fill that gap. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Taylor.
Go ahead, Mr. Taylor.
Mr. Chairman, committee. First of all, I would say it would be non-existent in the state of Wyoming to not be able to find a vet to come preg check your cows. You're going to have to plan. You're going to have to do some rearranging. You're going to have to talk with your vets. But when I said there's other vets in our area, we have another vet that would probably travel. If I couldn't get a date and he had a date that was open, he would travel over 100 miles to come and preg check our cows. I mean, it's not horrible in the state of Wyoming to do that. It happens. So my first response to that would be, I don't think that's a realistic issue. I think that you can find a vet to preg check your cows. You're gonna have to plan ahead, and you may have to use a different vet. But I think that that's totally possible. I do have some friends and neighbors that maybe have used it as a management tool. They don't preg check anymore. They just, in the spring, they calve until May 10th and then sell all the rest of the cows. There's good points to that, bad points to that. Us living in the DSA, we're looking for other things rather than just our breed up. But I guess the main answer to that question is I think that not being able to find someone to preg check your cows is a complaint of non-preparedness.
Thank you. Appreciate your time. So what we're going to have, I'll ask people to come down and fill the chairs on this front row if you want to testify, so we get a kind of an idea of who we got here that wants to testify, and kind of save us some time of getting down here too. So fill the chairs, and whoever's first to the mic, go ahead. Okay, yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one online with a hand up, Dr. Odakova, and I believe she
Okay.
was part of the board testimony, and then numerous others online available
Online.
also.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, Mr. Chairman and committee members, my name is Dr. Joe Dona. I'm the president-elect of the Wyoming Veterinary Medical Association. And I just wanted to come here today to tell you some of the initiatives that we have started. A year ago, we formed a rural veterinary shortage committee to look at the shortage of mixed rural animal practitioners in the state of Wyoming. And so we formed an action plan on this committee, and we've initiated 2 programs that we hope will help on a long-term basis address the shortage of rural mixed animal practitioners in the state. So the first thing we did was we initiated a budget amendment in the 2026 legislative budget session. Fortunately, that did pass, and the governor signed it, and it is to fund up to 5 positions at Kansas State University or at any other accredited veterinary college that has a curriculum that focuses on rural veterinary training and food animal medicine. So Kansas State has had this program in effect since 2006. It's been highly successful. And so we are presently negotiating with them. I met with the guys from the UW, the dean of the Ag College, the dean of animal science, admissions member, and another person from government relations. And we met about a week ago and to start negotiations between UW, who will administer this program, and Kansas State University. I was hoping that we could maybe get some kids in by the fall of 2027. UW administrators thinks that it'll probably be the fall of 28. But anyway, we're working on that now. The program that Kansas State has been very successful in training these kids to adjust, survive, and be retained in rural community settings. So that program, we're very excited about that program, and we think that it'll be a benefit. Another program we started that we think goes hand in hand with that is the WVMA is funding an externship grant for veterinary students so that they can go do externships with large animal practitioners around the state. We funded 3 of those at $1,500 that will be taking place this summer, one in Sheridan, one in Evanston, and one over in Baggs. So we are making public announcements at the vet schools about this. We had 6 applicants this year, and we hope to get more next year and fund a few more. So I think that'll go hand in hand. That opens the line of communications. These kids get to come and see Wyoming, and if they aren't a Wyoming resident, most of them were, and get firsthand experience in a practice, build a relationship, open communications. The intent of this program with Kansas State is to lower the debt for these kids so that they can afford to come to a rural setting. Rural veterinarians make about 50% of what they could make in an urban setting in a small animal practice. So it's a lifestyle that they'll certainly want. And I think if we reduce their debt significantly, they can afford to come, take lower wages, and we can retain them in these communities. So that's the goal of this. It'll provide a continuous supply of veterinarians starting in the year 2031 to 2032 of 3 to 5 kids a year that will be required to come back to the state and practice. They also will be required to practice in a mixed animal practice where 30% of the clientele is food animal ag production clients. So those are the things that we're doing proactively. I think if we allow non-certified lay people to preg test, you're going to reduce the income for these practices. They won't be able to hire these new kids. The new kids won't be able to be retained there because you're going to reduce their income. And so it's going to have a negative effect on these 2 proactive programs that we're trying to get going. So I would hope that we could reconsider this and give these 2 programs a chance, because I think that in the long term, this will better meet the needs of the Wyoming producers, livestock producers in this state. So that's all I have. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to take them.
Thank you. Quick. Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Chairman. So there's a couple of questions. What would be the percentage and roughly of what you would lose if opening it up to lay people money-wise? Like, is it half of what you guys make a year? The other thing, how many lay people do we actually have that want to do this? I mean, that's a huge question for me. I don't know anyone that said, oh, this is what I want to do on my off time. So I was just wondering how we even, what you think that is. And then I guess there were 3 questions when someone does go to AI school, is this part of it? Are we kind of opening it up? So if you are able to AI, this would be something. Is that the kind of lay people we're looking at, or do they already have that in their certification?
Go ahead, Doctor.
Mr. Chairman and committee. Well, first of all, I had a rural mixed animal practice in Glen Rock, Wyoming for 30 years. And I sold that in 2010 and then retired. I did relief work for 7 more years and then retired from active practice. I can just tell you that initially when I started my practice, my large animal practice was about 65% of my practice was large animals. And when I finished it 30 years later, it was about 35%, and that was because of health issues. But in the fall, my fall runs from the middle of September to the end of November. There was very few days I was in a clinic. So my preg testing was a huge part of my income, and the herd health stuff, consultation and vaccination, all the routine cattle work was very big in my practice. So it would be very significant. I can't give you a number on that, but it would be very significant if I would have lost that. As far as AI, when you go to AI school, you're really not getting taught palpation of pregnancy. They don't have that skill after an AI school to be palpating and diagnosing pregnancy. And what was the last question?
Thank you. I think really my question was, if they don't even have that school, how many lay people do we really have out there that are saying, oh, I have this skill and I can do this for you? Where are they going to get the skill? I guess that was just a huge question. And like I said, I've never had people say, oh my goodness, I'm going to run around and do this and I have this skill. I guess for us, I'm not going to just have someone that doesn't have some skills. I guess that was, I guess my biggest question was, is this a problem? Do we have all these people out there saying, this is what I'm going to do on my off time? It's where this was coming from. I'm just curious.
Well, I certainly think, Mr. Chairman, I certainly think that there is lay people out there doing this that have been doing it. I talked to my colleagues and they mentioned it to me, that they have some of these people in their area. I don't think that if there isn't a lot of them if there is not a lot of people that want to do this, then I guess we really don't need to put this in as a statute or whatever. Again, yeah, I don't know the demand, but I think there is. And I think if you open it up, you'll have people come in from other states that are doing it. They'll come to Wyoming and try to do it also.
Yes, Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I don't understand on the first program why it would take till 2028 to get it rolling. We're in 2026.
Okay. Yeah.
And it seems to me we're more than a year away from school starting in 2027. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, that's a great question. And what I pointed out to the UW administrators last week is the VMSAC, which is the national application that all vet students fill out, is due September 15th. So that shortens it up. And now this would be for the kids that are applying to get in the fall of 2027, okay? Their application is due September 15th, which is, 2.5 months away. They make decisions on those applications October 15th. So that's the timeline we're up against. And so I really think that if we can get the UW guys to have a Zoom with the admissions people at Kansas State, they have contracts with North Dakota State and a couple of other states already. So, the groundwork is there, and this will be somewhat new for UW, though they do have these contracts for medicine and nurse practitioners and optometrists with other professional schools. But anyway, so I'm still optimistic that we could do this and get 3 to 5 kids in there the fall of 2027. So anyway, I actually was able to get the memorandum of understanding between North Dakota State and Kansas State, and I sent that to Dr. Kelly Crane. And so I'm hoping to hear from him soon. I hope that we can do it. The money's there that you guys appropriated. I really hope we can do it.
Go ahead.
Just one quick follow-up. So if I get my vet application in by September 15th this year for the 27 year, and I don't get selected in 27, is the application still live, or do I have to redo it for the 28 year?
Unfortunately, you have to redo it.
I think you can understand my confusion now. It seems like we're slow rolling this. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Doctor, I'm sorry, your name again, Doctor?
Joe Dona.
Dolman, okay. Didn't catch that the first time. You talk about subsidizing, education for vet school, with the caveat that they come back and practice in Wyoming. I kind of use that phrase as golden handcuffs effectively. Do you have any statistics on, does that work, or what are the penalties if they, don't comply? I mean, I think a lot of people with those golden handcuffs, if they're not happy where they are, they're going to leave anyway. And just to understand for the taxpayers, what we're subsidizing there and what the penalties are. Thank you.
Go ahead, Doctor.
Mr. Chairman, committee members. So if they don't return, they have to start paying back those loans within 150 days of graduation. Now, if they want to go on for higher education past their DVM, if they want to do an internship or a residency in food animal medicine or equine medicine or whatever, the period doesn't start. They can go ahead and do that, and that might take 2 years, whatever, and then the 150 days starts after that. So we don't inhibit them from continuing their education if they want to do that. The statistics for Kansas are amazing. These were for Kansas kids, okay, but that have went through this program. They've had 94 kids go through it since 2006. And I will tell you that they've adapted this program 4 different times in their state legislature. As it went on, their requirement was to come back to a county that had 30,000 people or less. Okay, they've now changed that to 40,000. But their retention, and they have to go into a practice that has 50% food animal medicine or production animal medicine. And they have 77% of those kids still in their original practice. They have 94% of those kids are still in a underserved area. In other words, a county that's 40,000 or less in a mixed food animal practice, 94%. They've had 98% of the kids honor their contract. And so that's since 2006. Now it's interesting, we as we work through this and set this up, we're thinking we want to require them to come back. And North Dakota, I was talking to them at the WICHE meetings last week, and North Dakota State does not require their kids. And he gave me 10 years of data that shows 50% of those kids have come back to their state, and that's with no requirement. So again, I think one of the big advantages to giving this money to them as they go to school, they know from the time they're a freshman in vet school that they're going to come back, they have to come back to the state of Wyoming. That gives them time to do externships and make contacts with large animal veterinarians within the state. And I think that's a better way to approach this. They don't incur the initial debt versus a loan repayment program that some states do. There are 27 states that have some type of state funding for veterinarians to go to school. A good percentage of those pay them back, if they come to the state. But I think it's better to get this up on the front end like we're trying to do, so they don't incur that debt initially, and then they know that they're going to have to return to the state. It gives them 4 years to figure out where they would like to go and make contacts.
Further questions? Thank you. So we'll go to you next, ma'am, and if you want, Doctor, pass your mic down to Mr. McGagnon, then we'll kind of stagger like that. So go ahead, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman and committee members, my name is Dr. Brooke Hirsch. I am a veterinarian here in Fremont County. In 2023, I started my own mobile veterinary practice. It's called Hirsch Veterinary Services. I would say as far as my caseload goes, I'm looking at about 75% large animal. So I want you guys to be aware that I started this business 1 year after I graduated veterinary school. So when I went to vet school, I did not have anybody to pay for my education. I had to take out loans. So when I started this business, I was about $200,000, a little bit over in debt. Not to mention, it is very expensive to start a business. You have to buy all the equipment, all the insurances, all your licenses. I mean, it's no cheap feat by any means. And so as far as the service of preg checking goes for my business, when fall rolls around, I say it takes up about 75% of my income, which is huge, especially for a small business. I also am a recipient of the VMLRP award. So basically I got a grant and they're going to end up paying about a third of my student loans over a 3-year period. That being said, I have to dedicate about 12 hours a week to large animal practice, which again, preg checking, it's very time consuming, and that takes up a big chunk of that time so that I can get my loans paid off better. So as far as my business goes, I know I mentioned earlier, preg checking, it helps financially, it helps to pay the bills. Tax season comes up. It helps set aside money for that. It also enables me to purchase equipment. I have a pretty good ultrasound right now. That being said, I don't rely on the ultrasound all the way. And I think I want you guys to be aware that that separates us veterinarians from lay people. So when I went to vet school, I learned how to preg check via manual palpation of the tract. And so in practice, yes, I'll use the ultrasound, but a lot of times I'll double check manually because I've learned that the ultrasound, you don't always pick it up pending what stage gestation they're in. So again, that separates us from the lay people. Additionally, preg checking helps me establish a relationship with clients around the area. So I've met a lot of different farmers and ranchers through offering this service, and it helps establish that vet-client-patient relationship. And that's important because as long as I see these people once a year, I can prescribe antibiotics. I'm more willing to assist with emergencies. It helps to know what kind of setup people have. So if somebody calls on emergency and they're like, hey, I have a C-section, if I know they got a good chute and a good facility and I can do it out in the field, I'm more willing to go help. If I don't know them, you know, of course they're gonna say they have a good setup. I go out there and it's like a Powder River from 1850. You know, it might not work too well. And then also if I have good clients that I know pay their bills, I'm more willing to help them versus people that don't. So that's really important to have that relationship. And then another thing too, from the antibiotic prescription standpoint, when I'm out preg checking a herd and let's say it looks like a cow has a uterine infection and needs antibiotics, I carry a lot of these on my truck so I can treat that right then and there, rather than if a lay person were to do it, you know, they'd have to call a veterinarian to come out and fix the issue. And again, I'm going to dive more into the client relationship aspect. So I see this a lot in the equine world, and I'm worried that's going to translate to the cattle industry. But a lot of these lay people, I feel like sometimes they overstep and they don't stay in their lane. So as an example, if you have a layperson out preg checking for somebody, and let's say, oh, they think this cow has an infection going on, okay, she needs antibiotics. Well, oh, you can just go ahead and call Brooke and she'll call you in a prescription. But I mean, if I haven't seen that person in the last year, I can't do it legally. And another thing is, I'd like to put my own eyes on that cow. That layperson is not qualified to make a diagnosis. So when the producer calls and I tell them no and explain that, and it's going to cost them more to have me out, that's going to irritate them. And it's going to impact the reputation. So I'm really worried about that happening as well. And then I just want to talk about the shortage issue. I know we've kind of touched on it a little bit here this morning, but rural America is very short on large animal veterinarians. And a lot of this is a lot of the older, more experienced veterinarians are on the brink of retiring. And a lot of people in my age group, it's just not appealing to move to a rural area unless you grew up in one. So I grew up here, which is why I wanted to come back. And also large animal medicine, there's more hours, more physical labor. You don't make as much versus if you were to do small animal in an urban setting. So I know that this policy is going to make this issue much worse. It's going to dip into my income. Like I said, that 75% income in the fall is going to go down if a layperson is getting that instead of me. It's also going to reduce the time that I spend with these people. It's going to impact that vet-client-patient relationship, and it may also affect my VMLRP requirements if I can't make those 12 hours per week, therefore affecting the ability to pay off my loans. And I'm just going to throw it out there. I love preg checking, and I can't say that for half my class. My veterinary class, I'd say maybe 20% of us were interested in large animal medicine, and most of those people were equine. So I'm kind of a rarity in this generation, and if there's lay people out there taking away our job and our work, that's going to be very disheartening. So yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Appreciate that firsthand testimony of somebody from Wyoming right here. Appreciate that. Good insight. Questions, committee? Okay, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Senator.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I got your name. Was it Brooke Hirsch?
Mr. Chairman, it's Brooke Hirsch.
Brooke Hirsch. Dr. Brooke Hirsch. Just echo what Chairman Banks said. Thank you for being here. That's what we need more of, is boots on the ground, whether it's producers or doctors, and sort through this item that kind of got brought to the table for us to deal with. And appreciate your honesty and your all your information, and thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Senator Pearson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to echo what they said. Thank you for coming. I just want to throw out there that I love my large animal vet, and he's looking for someone to take over his practice. And I don't know what I would do without him. I'm going to cry, but I appreciate the large animal vets that are willing to be out there and willing to take the calls at 3 o'clock in the morning and are willing to explain over the phone what to do if that's needed. So I in no way want anyone to think that this ag committee is against our veterinary practices, because I love my vet. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Further? Okay, thank you. Mr. McGagney, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jim McGagnon with the Wyoming Stockgrowers Association, and looking at this strictly from the perspective of the cattle producer and how they're impacted and what opportunities they need. First of all, I would say that we totally concur with the information that's been presented of the clear advantages of having preg testing done by a licensed veterinarian. We think that, and we would encourage our members to do that. At the same time, look at the other side of that coin, and that cow is my personal property if I own her, and we would defend my right to do what I want with her as long as it doesn't involve cruelty to animals or it doesn't involve providing false information to a third party to rely upon. As we look at the current law that we have in Wyoming, I'm struggling to understand why there's a need to do anything differently. And I believe some of the documentation you have in front of you outlines a provision in some exceptions in the current law. And one of those exceptions is that the owner of the livestock or their employee can do these various practices, including preg testing. And I think even goes a little further and says, or the neighbor and the neighbor's employee. So I think that respects the right of the owner of the livestock, where they, for whatever reasons, feel that they can't get a veterinarian when they want one, or they just prefer to do it because they see it as a cost saving, even though in some cases it may end up adding costs, but that they're free to do that. And I guess in scenario I envision, I don't believe we want to encourage a new profession in the state that people start businesses based on just doing preg testing and they're not veterinarians. But the fact that someone can do it, we would defend their right to do it. We think the current law allows that. If I want my employee to do it, I can have him do it. If I don't have an employee that can do it, but I know an individual out there who's capable of doing it, I see nothing that would preclude me in the current law from bringing that person on as a contract employee strictly for the purpose of doing my preg testing for me. So I'm just questioning what we need further beyond what we already have in the law, Mr. Chairman. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. McGagnon. I appreciate that. Any questions? Mr. McGagnon. Go ahead, Sunride.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. McGagnon, you've been around a long time and appreciate all your testimony at these meetings. Quick question. Do you see, it's hard for me to gauge just what, the lay people, is it prevalent? And I like your comments on, the producers have that freedom to decide how they want to deal with their own cattle, and they can contract that out if they want to separately. And the previous speaker, Dr., I can't pronounce her name again here, but I apologize for that. Is it pretty prevalent out there that lay people are doing this quite a bit? It doesn't sound like they are. Anyway, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, I certainly don't have any data that I can utilize on that. My sense is that it's not being widely done, but it is being done in part of necessity where there isn't a large animal vet available and in a relatively timely manner. But I'm not aware, at least in Wyoming, of people who are making it their profession to say I'm a preg tester. Call me and I'll come and do it for you. But I think it's more you find an individual who has some background that you think whether they're your employee or someone else you can bring on board that you could do an employment contract with that has enough experience around the animals that you think they can probably give you the degree of certainty that you're satisfied with, recognizing it's not going to be the same as what would come from a licensed veterinarian.
Thank you. Go ahead, Representative Struck.
Thank you. And maybe you can't answer this. It's just something I may have to refer to someone else. I know when you go to sell your open or even if they're pregnant, does the sale barn, I think they recheck there, correct? Or either way, you've already gone through, you've already paid once. Just curious on how that works. And
I may not, Mr. Chairman, be the best person. I think they often do that. I do know that the requirement is if I'm certifying an animal is pregnant or open, as the case may be, that has to be based on a preg check done by a licensed veterinarian. I can have someone else preg test for my own information, but I can't use that in a business arrangement.
Go ahead.
Follow up. Thank you. So really this, if we do this, it's not gonna, that wouldn't change that aspect of it, correct? It would still, they would still have to go get someone, you know, this lay person. You would still have to get someone else to come in if you were going to sell, or is, correct?
Mr. Chairman, that's my understanding, but I would certainly defer to others here at the table who are more knowledgeable about that than I am.
Go ahead, Representative Ott.
Thank you. I was, Mr. Chairman, I was thinking, Mr. McGagnon, it's good to see you as always. What did you say about, they can also, like if they want to preg check their own animals, but they could also do their neighbors? What, you know, there's a piece in this notice of policy that says the owner of an animal, the owner's employees, or any livestock operator, and such operators' employees with whom the owner exchanges work and belonging to such owner in any manner desired by said owner. That is an addition, I believe, to the policy that is being looked at. But what does that mean? What do we?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, it's my understanding that's what I was referencing in my comments, that because of that provision, that the owner of the livestock for their own purposes has the ability to have their employee or neighbor's employee or the neighbor do the preg checking for them if they choose to do so, for their own purposes only. And that's where I pointed out that if my employee isn't capable of it, but I know someone else's employee who is, I could do a employment contract with them to come and spend the day, do that for me or something like that. That's my point, is that I think we have enough of that flexibility today that there's no prohibition against doing it, but there's no need that we see at this point to expand it.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Just to follow up with that, I don't understand it that way. I understand that currently, if you want to do your own, you may. If you work for someone else, you may do theirs, but you can't just go across that. And that is one of the reasons why this is here today, is to give operators and producers the opportunity to hire whom they may want to do this one specific service. Am I misunderstanding what's going on?
Mr. Chairman, I don't have that language in front of me that you just read, but as I have read it, I understand that I can do it or my employee can do it, but my neighbor can come over and help, and the neighbor's employee. That's the way I was reading that language now. But
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead.
Okay. And if so, but currently that is not in the policy. What I'm reading, this would be an addition. So this would have to go through the board and through the legislature to become policy, if I'm reading it correctly. It's in the red.
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is that is in the current policy. It's only in red to highlight it.
To highlight
For
it?
your information, for all of our information.
Okay.
It is in the current policy.
So if you're looking at Romanet 5 there, that's the current language.
Okay, is that, so that's
Statute.
statute right now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you. I'll look.
Further questions? Oh, go ahead, Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Representative Strzok asked the question, and it was directed toward Mr. McGagnon. Anybody else can chime in on that as far as double pregnancy testing. You do it once, do you do it again at sale barn when you sell? If anybody has some insight for us here, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
You want to take that one? Go ahead.
This on? Now you can hear me. I worked at the sale barn when Glen Rock had a sale barn, and most of the time it was the sale barn's rule that if they were going to guarantee these cows pregnant they were selling, they wanted them tested by their sale barn veterinarian. So they could have been tested by me on the ranch 2 weeks before. Well, because I worked for the sale barn, they probably would have honored that. But say I didn't, and I tested them 3 weeks earlier, and they're going to sell them as bred cows. They a lot of times that's the sale barn dictates that. Okay, does that help?
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate the answer to that question. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, members of the committee. My name is Karen Clark with the Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation, and I also want to make sure and express our incredible support of Wyoming rural veterinarians and the work that you do. It's a very important service that they provide to farmers and ranchers in the state of Wyoming. Our member policy, where our member policy lies is wanting to be able to have the opportunity, the option to pay who they choose to pregnancy test their livestock. And so when you look at these conversations we've been having this morning, again, the support of the rural vet medicine program, getting more rural vet medicine there, really where our members come from is having that option and the freedom to choose how they manage their animals. And so when you look at the conversations around disease and checking, ranchers are going to make sure they're managing their herd. To remain profitable, if you're at just a 75% breed up, you've got to figure out what is wrong and definitely get to work on that. And so just want to reiterate some of those points. And again, our Farm Bureau members our policy supports their ranchers being able to pay who they choose to pregnancy check their livestock. And again, reiterate our support for rural veterinarians here in the state of Wyoming. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions for the Farm Bureau? Go ahead, Representative Johnson.
Yeah, thank you for showing up here. I think this is a free market question. I think the ranchers, depends on their financial situation and what information they require for that day or the coming months or whatever. But I do think that we need to allow the farmers and ranchers to have that free market and do as they choose. Thank you. I think that's basically what you're saying.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, Representative Johnson, thank you for that. Yes, that is exactly where our members feel is that individual freedom and the free market to be able to manage their animals that they own. And so when you take a look at, it's been discussed too, I mean, some ranchers choose not to pregnancy test, right? Whatever that management is within their herd.
Thank you. Go ahead, Senator Ed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. With that discussion, do you feel the current statute that we have on the books, does that allow that freedom for the producer, the rancher? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Ide. As I read that and interpret it, it does allow for them to either have their employees, or it also talks about operators' employees with whom the owner exchanges work. So that appears but that's up to interpretation. Can you pay someone that you don't exchange work with? What is that? And Mr. McGagnon mentioned that, like if you're contracting, if you do a contract relation. So that is how I would read that. And I think there's a little bit of interpretation question there. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Further questions? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, good morning. My name is Kevin Dickey. I'm a veterinarian, and I operate Owl Creek Veterinary Service in Thermopolis and Grable River Veterinary Service in Meeteetse, and I'm very happy to be Mr. Taylor's veterinarian. Veterinarians operate off of what's called a veterinarian client-patient relationship, a VCPR, and those 4 letters are integral to what practicing veterinarians do on a daily basis. It's the cornerstone of veterinary practice, that 3-way relationship between the practitioner, the animal, and the owner of that animal. And it requires a veterinarian to know enough about an animal or about a particular production system or operation to make informed decisions. It's the foundation of safe and effective veterinary care that we enjoy in the United States. It must be in place before a veterinarian can diagnose, prescribe medications, treat, or prognosticate concerning a particular situation. Obviously, that requires contact with those animals, with a herd in a production situation. And in my practice area, sometimes the contact that I have with the herd may be limited to pregnancy testing. And so to keep that veterinarian client-patient relationship valid, to keep that active, oftentimes requires visits to the ranch, and sometimes that is limited on a yearly basis to the time that I pregnancy test their animals. As I mentioned earlier, that valid VCPR is required to make prescriptions for prescription medications, oftentimes antibiotics. And with that access possibly being limited, certainly that could be to the detriment of the animals in that operation. As it's been pointed out today, the Wyoming Practice Act currently defines pregnancy testing as making a diagnosis, and that's something that I feel that should be limited to licensed veterinarians. As we've discussed, the owners of livestock also have other options themselves or their paid employees to make that diagnosis. I'm also a member of the Wyoming Veterinary Medical Association, and I'm on their board of directors. And we feel that pregnancy testing being allowed to be broadened into the hands of laypersons, non-licensed veterinarians, puts the health of those animals at risk, and it puts at risk the integrity of that veterinarian client-patient relationship. Things do go wrong sometimes in pregnancy testing, and done inappropriately, certainly it can cause harm to the animal, not to mention things like misdiagnoses or missed problems. Oftentimes when doing pregnancy testing, veterinarians will diagnose things like reproductive tract infections, cystic ovarian disease, other evidences of infertility that can have a negative impact on a particular production system. I can think of instances in my own practice where a very low conception rate was discovered at the time of pregnancy diagnosis, and digging a little deeper and doing some diagnostics determined that there was an infectious disease process active in that herd at the time. And I feel that that's something that a layperson just doesn't have the breadth of knowledge or the resources available to them to make that kind of diagnosis. Not to mention things like nutritional deficiencies. We've mentioned today the emergence of New World screwworm, and we could go on and on about other potential foreign animal diseases and emerging problems that veterinarians are constantly on the lookout for. Veterinarians carry the liability of making a proper diagnosis and caring for those animals to the point of having to carry liability insurance. In the instance of this practice being open to laypersons who then carries that liability. And we've mentioned today that the Wyoming Board of Veterinary Medicine exists to protect the consumer, and they uphold the standard of veterinary care within our state. If this is broadened to non-veterinarians being able to make pregnancy diagnosis, who then is protecting the consumer? And that's the consumer both of veterinary care and services, but also ultimately of food products that we are producing on our ranches within the state. Thank you very much. And with that, I'd take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Dickey. Appreciate that. Any questions, committee? Thank you. Again, appreciate that firsthand experience, knowledge. Dr. Acey, welcome. Go ahead, please.
Mr. Chairman, committee, thank you for having us today. There's a lot of what I wanted to discuss that has already been talked about. So I just want to share a quick experience about my practice. I am from Lovell. I am a recipient of several programs from the state. I received WICHE funding when I went to vet school. I attended vet school and graduated in 2014. And when I returned, I received a loan repayment program through the state that helped me pay for my student loans. As of which, now as a veterinarian in the Bighorn Basin throughout the state of Wyoming. I do almost all cattle work. I don't do any small animal. If I can help it, I do very little equine. I really just do cattle work. And I am so thankful for my clients that I work with, for the ranchers and farmers and neighbors that I work with every single day. And I feel like I'm the luckiest man alive. I'm also so thankful for the people that I work with, the Wyoming Livestock Board, with the Wyoming Vet Association, the USDA and APHIS and other oversight that I have. One quick experience that I have is as working in the designated surveillance area for brucellosis. There have been several instances that I have diagnosed brucellosis in herds in Park County, and that was all because we were there doing pregnancy diagnosis and brucellosis testing at the same time. That brucellosis testing was not mandatory. It was a screening that they were doing as part of their herd plan. And because of that, we were able to catch brucellosis very early. If I was not there, or if a veterinarian was not there doing that pregnancy diagnosis, that brucellosis testing would not have been done. So I think that it has incredibly helped the designated surveillance area, making sure that veterinarians are there helping with the brucellosis program. And that happens, again, along with pregnancy diagnosis. As far as some of the other things that I'd like to touch on, I am so thankful for the opportunity to work where I do, and I'm thankful for rural veterinarians. I'm in a spot in my practice where I feel like I'm doing the work of 2 veterinarians and trying to find room to fit another veterinarian in. When I came back to Wyoming, I wasn't required to come back. I always thought it was crazy that I wasn't required to come back after receiving WICHE funding, but I'm so thankful that I did come back. But now that I'm looking to expand and hire another veterinarian, I think that brucellosis testing and pregnancy testing, pregnancy diagnosis is a very big part of my practice and would be what I would need to bring another veterinarian on. Thank you, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. Really appreciate that testimony. Go ahead, Senator McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question. If this were to pass or lay people were allowed, how many of your clients do you think would leave you? Or would they stay with you because they depend on your quality services? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I've thought a lot about that, and I really don't worry that many of mine would leave. I think that I have a great rapport with my clientele, and I don't think many of them would leave. I do worry about the future, trying to hire another veterinarian to work for me and bringing on a new veterinarian that maybe isn't from the area. I have a lot of rapport with the ranchers that I work with because I'm from the town. I came back to the town that I grew up in. I also have a couple of veterinarian uncles that helped me get established. So I don't worry about me. I really worry about the future and rural veterinarians as a whole, trying to get more veterinarians back. I think if I was going to choose between a state that was promoting lay pregnancy diagnosis compared to one that doesn't, I would probably go to the state where that was protected. Thank you.
Further questions? Go ahead, Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just looking up Google here, and we're having the smallest herd size since 1951. And I know that affects a lot of everybody, especially veterinarians. If you had more cattle to check, it would sure help, wouldn't it? So I just think that this is a financial situation for many ranchers, and let them choose. I know that you guys have a lot of money invested in and time in becoming a vet. What about in the human services, we have nurse practitioners. Is that allowable, or is that something that would help your position in Wyoming? I'm just curious. I don't know what to think, but you can
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think if there's someone else that'd like to comment on this, I don't have a lot of knowledge on as far as like a physician's assistant veterinarian. I know that they're trying or at least developing that in Colorado. I'm not sure how that is working and how that's going forward. I would love to hire another veterinarian, not only for pregnancy diagnosis, but for all the other things I don't want to do. And I think that it's important that we have it available for, we want to encourage veterinarians to come back to the state of Wyoming and not be just required to.
Thank you. Further questions? Okay, thank you. Appreciate that testimony. Go ahead, sir.
That one. Could I request that you go to the other end of the table and let me wrap up when we're done?
Sure, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and the board. My name is Glenn Gamble. I'm a veterinarian right here in Riverton, Wyoming. And I don't know, I'm not the best public speaker on earth, but I do speak a lot. This left arm of mine built my practice and allowed me to be able to afford to do all the things I've been able to do. It started, you know, it's a typical practice in Wyoming, I think, at least a mixed animal. You know, first year I preg checked 2,000 cows. Next year it was 10,000. After that, 35,000. You know, you're preg checking 1,000 cows a day at times. This really, really allows you to be able to afford to do quality service. You know, because it takes a lot of money to be able to run a quality vet clinic, and it takes equipment. It takes a lot of determination. There's a lot of factors that worked against you. You know, I won't go into those. But what I would like to talk about, in 1998, I was up preg checking up on the Sweetwater, and it was later. It was November 15th, because these guys don't preg check till later. A lot of the herds around there had been preg checked already. How come I picked up 40% open or late and 60% bred cows and nobody else did? Because all the herds around there were infected with trick. And that was a problem where we figured out that somebody brought some cattle from Utah and ran open cows up on the range, and everybody's bulls were jumping in with them. Those cows from Utah brought that trick in. Well, it was pretty obvious to me within about 50 cows there was a problem. And I'm not sure a layperson would have figured that out that quickly and started thinking immediately, because that's another point I'd like to make. Somebody brought up here that lowering the bar on the requirements to get into vet school, that's insane. That is literally insane. You have to have medical training that you can apply to almost everything very quickly. And that takes, I don't know, for a lack of a better way to put this, a certain amount of intellect. And I think that needs to be maintained. I don't know if everybody agrees with me on that, but that's how I feel about it. Dr. Osborne brought it up that he feels the same way. I was glad to hear that. And Dr. Dickey pointed out a lot of things about being a veterinarian that's the reality. And but anyways, back to that situation up on the Sweetwater, it had already spread to bulls everywhere. And so at the time, I don't think something like that had happened. And there was a lot of, preg checking cows, when you're doing, let's say, I think we did about 700 cows that day. And it's pretty awful when you're watching 40% of them go into the open pen, and you've got all the neighbors there helping. And I was new to the area at the time. The guys that I was preg checking for, they knew I knew what I was doing. Some of them probably thought, geez, where'd this guy come from? You know, he's calling all these open cows. It was a disaster. And they wanted to put their heads in the sand. The livestock board had to step in and make everybody. Now, the people that I was preg checking for, I said, we need to test these guys for trick. And next week, as soon as we can, I said, So they did. The other ones within that grazing association, I got to say how it was, they wanted to put their head in the sand, literally. And they were forced basically by the livestock board to trick test. I don't know how many, and it had already spread from this area on the Sweetwater all the way around. And over the next several years, trick in this area spread all the way to the Arapahoe Ranch, from up there on the Sweetwater all the way to the Arapahoe Ranch. It took a lot of work by veterinarians to get this under control. Luckily, it was found very quickly, but like I said, there were several places that had already preg checked, and they never even picked this up. I'm not saying I'm some kind of a great diagnostician, but I don't know what was going on, but I was the first one to find it. And I was very glad to be as well trained as I was to be able to point this out and be able to talk people into actually jumping on the problem. And I got help from the livestock board to make people, I had to do meetings I got the grazing association together and I did meetings with them, information on how they could have gotten it, how fast it spreads. It was kind of a big deal. And because it was, for one thing, it was economically devastating for these ranches. And that's another point about preg checking. You know, you're messing with people's livelihood. When you're a veterinarian out preg checking cows, you better get it right, because you are literally messing with people's financial situation. And if you've got somebody that's iffy, or if you decide the veterinarians couldn't come out and do my job, so I had to get a layperson to do this, that's a mistake. That's a real mistake in my opinion. And the other thing that goes on with veterinarians, when you're out, and I'm not the only one, I'm sure, that does this, I'm constantly talking about parasite control or parasites, internal worms, external worms. I'm talking about health the entire time I'm doing it. And it's client education. And if over time, if you allow people in that are not medically trained to do a job that it truly is a diagnostic, is a diagnostic procedure, there's a lot that goes in with it. You know, like I said, the parasite, the herd health, and veterinarians like myself, and I'd like to think all of them are the same. That's what we do. Herd health is number one on our mind. And I don't know if you try to cut that out, or cut out the veterinarian over time, that's going to be extremely detrimental in my opinion. And it's already tough enough to get, you know, I've hired several veterinarians over the years, and they stay for a while, then they leave, just like Dr. Dickey has been dealing with. You know, they get trained, you know, they get around somebody like me, and my wife is also a veterinarian. We're nose to the grindstone type people, and they get around us, and they learn right now. Well, they're like, I want to go back to Colorado. I want to go back to Utah. I want to go back to Montana, wherever they're from, and start their own practice. So we do get people here, but they leave. And if you make that environment even more difficult for them to want to stay as a large animal veterinarian, I don't just do large animals, but I do a lot of them. And I basically start preg checking in somewhere, I do a little later here, being associated with the reservation. But I preg check basically from maybe mid-October all the way into mid-January. A lot of tribal people, they can leave their cows out on range for quite a while because they got a lot of range. And so it takes, think about that. I make a lot of money just preg checking. Well, that's important. So it allows you to be able to do, as a veterinarian, what you may not be able to do if you weren't getting all that extra money in. So, like I said, I'm not the best.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate that testimony. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Jim Logan, previous state veterinarian. I've worked with everybody that's up here and that was on the screen extensively. Good colleagues, all of them, including Karen Clark and Jim McGagna. We've worked a lot together, and everybody's comments have been spot on. I couldn't have said it better. As I've sat here, I've heard a few questions that if it's okay, I will go ahead and address because I don't think they've been adequately addressed yet, and I think it's important for the committee to hear answers to some of those. I practiced in Riverton. I grew up here, came back to Riverton, worked in a practice, and I practiced here in Fremont County and every single one of the adjacent counties for close to 30 years, actually 28 and a half years. Then I went to work as a state veterinarian. And the situation that Dr. Gamble there on the end was talking about with the trick happened, I think, a year after I became the state veterinarian. And it was highly important that a veterinarian locally was involved in that situation to help make that diagnosis. And that actually was part of the beginning of the Wyoming Livestock Board's Chapter 15 trichomoniasis rules, which was a statewide effort. We had trick in a lot of areas around the state, but this issue on the Sweetwater here in Fremont County, the producers came to me, a lot of them who had been my previous clients, and asked to have some type of regulation on trichomoniasis. So having a veterinarian there at preg testing time, in my opinion, is vital. A couple of things that I would like to address. Senator Pearson brought up the issue of pregnancy testing sheep. And I can address this directly because I was the veterinarian who was working with the Wyoming wool growers, the group of producers, and a reproductive physiologist who was well trained to do ultrasound pregnancy diagnosis in sheep. There was nobody else in the state, not a veterinarian or anybody else in this state, that had the capability of doing that at that time. That was back in the late 70s, early 80s. I've lost track of time. But I went to the Board of Veterinary Medicine because I didn't want to get my neck in a wringer. And I recognized that, if I work with these people, which I wanted to do, every one of them was either a client or a friend of mine working through the Wyoming Wool Growers Association. And I told them what we wanted to do. Again, just laid out what I've just told you. And the vet board said, absolutely not. We aren't going to allow that to happen in Wyoming. I said, what if I'm the veterinarian working with these people? They said, can you be there at every time that they're going to be preg testing? And I said, no, I've got my own practice. I'm busy. I can be at some of them. And they shut that off. That left a bad taste in my mouth. Didn't appreciate it a bit because they were not allowing an industry that needed a service to be able to acquire that service. At some point, post that time, the statement that Jim McGagna alluded to of an owner of sheep or a neighbor who they share work with could do their own animals was added into the Practice Act. And I don't remember the timing on that either, but it was sometime before I became state veterinarian. But at any rate, to me, that was an injustice to the industry. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. And I'm here today. I'm not representing the vet board. I served on the vet board for over 20 years as an ex officio member as the state veterinarian. I'm not here to represent the WVMA or the livestock board. I'm just representing me, an old has-been. But I hope I've got some knowledge that will help your decisions. When it comes to preg testing cattle, in my opinion, allowing lay preg testers to do that service would be very ill-advised. And you've already heard from nearly every one of these people the reasons behind that. The cattle industry would stand to lose millions of dollars in this state if brucellosis was not caught quickly, if trichomoniasis is not caught quickly. And I'll tell you, we've got several other diseases, and I'm going to list these off. I've already said brucellosis and trich. But Q fever, Johne's disease, and others that may be identified at preg testing by licensed veterinarians that would likely be missed by lay preg testers. Q fever, brucellosis, TB, potentially Johne's disease are all diseases that are zoonotic, that could affect people, that can be transmitted from animals to people. Classic example, brucellosis. And we've had cases in veterinarians, I'm one of them, who contracted brucellosis from cattle. There have been hunters that contracted brucellosis from infected elk. Not that a veterinarian's going to stop that particular issue, but veterinarians can identify these things and get them reported and let regulatory action take place to clean those diseases up before they become a major problem. And obviously, we've had a lot of brucellosis in Wyoming. We've had TB in Wyoming that was found as tracebacks from other states. We've had Q fever, which is caused by an organism called Coxiella burnetii. Pretty common in sheep and goats. We've had it in Wyoming. It can also occur in cattle. And we've had that in Wyoming. And we've had cases of that disease in humans in Wyoming. So we're not just talking about an animal disease in a lot of these. We're talking about zoonotic diseases that can affect humans. And when they do affect humans, they're pretty doggone serious. So I'd like to come back just if I could, and I'll be as brief as I can. The question has come up several times. Representative Strzok, you had brought up about how many lay preg testers do we have in Wyoming? I can't answer the question, how many do we have? But I can tell you that while I was state veterinarian and serving on the vet board, we had many complaints from southwestern Wyoming, not southeastern, southwestern Wyoming, northeastern Wyoming, where there were lay preg testers that would come in from South Dakota, and lay preg testers that would come in from Utah and sometimes from Idaho. A couple of problems there. Those lay preg testers weren't doing a real great job. I don't know what their education was. I suspect it wasn't much. But the producers were complaining, but so also were the veterinarians who normally would have done the work for those producers. And when the vet board went to try to enforce our own Vet Practice Act that disallowed the lay preg testing practice, basically the attorneys for the vet board said, really, the only thing we can do is send those people a letter of cease and desist. Well, that's just damn near as worth as much as this piece of paper. They just kept on doing it until I think enough producers realized what they were running into that they gave up that idea and went back to using their veterinarians. So I can appreciate that producers across the state may want to save some money, but in the long haul, you're going to get just about what you pay for. And if you pay any one of these veterinarians here or anywhere around the state to do a job, you're going to get a good job, 99.9% of the time. You go outside of that, you're going to get what you pay for. So you may not save much. Senator Ide, you commented about subsidizing vets. That I think it was in relation to Dr. Who's sitting over there? Joe, yeah. To his presentation, which was excellent on the programs that the WVMA is working on with other states and with the vet board. It's important that we help these students, these people who are going to graduate and hopefully come back to Wyoming. In about 2007, the Wyoming Legislature recognized that we had a shortage issue of veterinarians, and this is not new just in Wyoming. It's been going on for years. It's across the country. As somebody else mentioned, there's a shortage of food animal veterinarians all over the country. But in 2008, the Wyoming Livestock Board had been given the authority by the legislature to promulgate rules. I believe it was Chapter 23 rules, yes, for a vet loan repayment program, which, and I won't name them, but a few of the people that are here today that have spoken, and I think a few others that are in the audience that are here today, were recipients of that vet loan repayment program grant, which enabled them to be here, to set up a practice, to be able to stay in Wyoming. And I might get my own head cut off for saying this, but that program was relatively successful. It wasn't very well funded. It was funded well enough that I think some years we were able to give 5 or 6 grants of maybe up to $40,000. And then, and I think it was probably in about 2018 or maybe 2019, due to at least perceived budget issues, the board was told to cut. And so that program got cut. It's still in statute, it's still authorized, but it isn't funded. And my opinion would be if the legislature, if this committee is truly serious about addressing a shortage issue for veterinarians, wouldn't we be a lot wiser to adequately fund that program, bring back funding to that, to help recruit some new veterinarians into the state that might be here for another 40 years, instead of putting a bunch of lay preg testers out there that are going to have a much less adequacy, much less education to do the procedures that we've talked about.
Dr. Logan, I hate to rush you, but we're kind of up against the clock on this topic, so we could just do a quick finalize.
No, yep. I think it's pretty much all been said. I can address some of the other things I was going to address one for Representative Altman and one for Representative Johnson, but I'll do that later at another time. And I appreciate the opportunity to address the committee, and everybody that was here did a stellar job. Thank you.
Thank you. Your expertise was very valuable to this committee. Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Logan? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate all the testimony. That was valuable to us. And we've got some people online. Go ahead and let in.
Mr. Chairman, we have one young lady that didn't have a seat here. Could she come up?
Okay, yep, go ahead. I'll release this, people, and perfect, thank you. Yes. Well, yet let this young lady come up, testify, then we'll jump to online.
My name is Odessa Clyde. This is something that I want to do. I see there's a need for it. Approximately 90% of the ranchers and producers that I've been in contact with support this. 8% do not support, and the other 2% were on the fence. It should be up to the ranchers or producers to decide who they want to preg test their cows. It takes 1 to 4 years to become an ultrasound technician for people, and for cattle, you have to be a licensed veterinarian, so it seems a little overkill. The free market will govern itself with this. If you're no good, the rancher's not going to be calling you back to do their stuff a second time. I don't believe there will be a ton of lay people getting into it, just with the cost associated with it, with all the equipment needed. Oregon recently passed a bill allowing this, that is set to expire in 2031, where they will reevaluate the situation, to see how it's going. There are schools that teach ultrasound training stuff. And maybe it would be something that the colleges could think about, like the community colleges as well. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimonies. Kind of intimidating sometimes, Kim, but we appreciate you taking time out of your day. Questions for Ms. Klein? Go ahead, Representative Altman.
Miss Clyde, thank you for being here today. And I know that it's very intimidating and you've heard a lot of testimony and good reasons, you know, people that are in the profession, whether it be through education, whether it be through lobbying, whether it be through having veterinarian offices themselves. But when you and I spoke about this, one of the things that I appreciated, and we decided to bring it because it is an issue, is for small business people. One, I would like for you to tell us how long your family has been here, what kind of experience you have with preg checking, and why you saw this as a possible business. And then secondly, what you've looked in as far as training that you could get and how long that would take. And then also what you may see as an opportunity for the community college or something like that to have a certification program that wouldn't take away from anything. We've heard that preg checking is one of the top financial things for the veterinarian, so it is a very lucrative business. We're talking about bringing people in from other states and going to school and everything. You are a Wyoming citizen, and I would just like you to give us a little more information. And please talk loudly so everybody can hear you. Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Klein.
I've been in ranching my whole life. I grew up here. So did my parents. RepoScan, since 2008, they have offered ultrasounding training programs on 5 different continents. They have 2-day workshops across the states. They also work with like the University of Utah to teach workshops there. Just a couple different other schools that teach ultrasound stuff is like Circle 5 School for Cattlemen in Missouri, Graham School in Kansas, KR Cattle in Colorado, and Viasana Ultrasound and Education, which has a really cool program. Only downside is they're in Canada. What was another one you said? Sorry.
Why do you see that this would be viable? I mean, what interested you, and are you already doing it? What are your neighbors doing? And why would you think, oh, what equipment would you have to get? And what kind of training would you have? Would it be there's 2 different ways to check. So which one are you talking about? And how would that work? Because when you and I had talked, you said again about equipment that you would have to buy and everything. Why would you think about getting into a business like this if it wasn't viable?
So for equipment, like an ultrasound machine, if the rancher doesn't have the chute and everything, you would need all of that stuff as well, and just the general stuff that goes along with brake testing. There's 2 different kinds of brake testing. So there's the ultrasound and palpitation. I would be looking into ultrasounding. Those machines are quite expensive, but it's something that I want to do. I'm not currently doing it. I don't think that it would take away from the veterinarians that have a good relationship with the ranchers and stuff. It would be for more like the smaller deals that the vets don't want to do, like the 5, 10, 20 head. I own a lot of small businesses, so it would just be another one on the list of stuff I do. I could do our own stuff as well, and it's something I would like to do.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Representative Altman?
And yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And while I understand the viability of all of the testimony that was here today, I also think that the threat of a young person, especially generations of family here that wants to start a small business and get the training to provide a service for some people that aren't being served, is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. And if there could be certifications, we have certifications for midwives, we have certifications for, we have preg testing for humans. And so I just don't, a lot of times at these meetings, we have lots of people involved in government and in procedure and policy and in the business themselves. And they see it as a threat. And these letters that I saw here pretty much saw it as a threat. And then in response to that, it seemed as though they were threatening. It was like, if you have somebody else preg check, then we can't. What I hear Ms. Clyde saying is that this is for people that don't have the opportunity to have a veterinarian come. I've heard today from people that we have no veterinarian shortage. Then I hear that there is a veterinarian shortage. There's 90 people that weren't here today because they're out working that say there is this shortage. So all I'm saying is that I would like the conversation to continue. I understand that everybody wants to make money, but ranchers have that need as well, and especially places that are not within an hour's drive. And so anyway, not to step on anybody's toes or give Miss Clyde a bad time. But again, I think when we're always talking about keeping Wyoming people in Wyoming and opening up things for our young people and keeping our young people here, this is certainly an opportunity for that exactly to happen. So I would appreciate your consideration as we move forward.
Thank you, Representative. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, thank you. And thank you for the courage to be here to testify today. I always like young people that are advocating for more freedom and less government permission to go to work. So thank you.
McEwen, do you have something?
Would it be possible to develop an EPT test for cows? Well, when people get pregnant, they pee on a stick at their house, and it's 99.9% accurate. Seems to me, why couldn't we do that for cattle? There is? I stand corrected.
Right, thank you. Appreciate you being here and your testimony. Okay, we'll go ahead and let Era Arano in. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for allowing me to testify remotely. I'm with my father for his 80th birthday, and he is perhaps not as spry as some of the 80-year-olds you have in the room with you at this time. With Rocky Mountain Farmers Union, and our policy is member-driven. Our members are silent on the specific topic of pregnancy checking, and we do specifically support our veterinarians. I want to take a moment and broaden this discussion a bit and bring in something from the June meeting last year as a tool for expanding access and maybe impacting some of the potential pricing for services. Our members have policies specifically supporting creating a veterinary technician under the supervision of a licensed veterinarian to provide care. Representative Ottman brought up the important role of our community colleges. There's already a vet aid or vet tech program at the Eastern Wyoming Community College. And as Representative Johnson brought up, our members have policies supporting mid-level practitioner certification for veterinary care. Right now, I think the only state that has that currently in practice, to our knowledge, is what's going on in Colorado, though there are many other states that are discussing this topic in light of the shortage. With the concerns we have, if the goal of this topic at its core is to address the shortage of veterinary services, overall, RMFU would like to see us reopen this conversation rather than have the lay folks doing pregnancy checks. Thank you. I stand for questions.
Thank you. Appreciate the testimony. Questions, committee? Okay, thank you. Next online.
Janet Byerman, Dr. Byerman.
Can you see me?
Yes,
and
go
hear
ahead.
me? Okay. I am testifying today on my own behalf. I am also the wife of Dr. Bob Byerman, and we have a practice in Big Piney, Wyoming. I see a dual role for me because I was a producer for 30 years, and then I've been on the veterinary side for 36 years. When we decided to move back to Wyoming to start a practice here, there was an older veterinarian in Pinedale. There was nobody in Big Piney. There hadn't been for quite a while. And it was a huge economic decision. My husband had 10 years of student loans to pay back, but it wasn't near the cost that it is to get through veterinary school now. We moved back at the beginning of the summer, and my husband did relief work for that summer until we could get established. And then our plan was, so previously in Big Piney, we had veterinarians here. They did not have a clinic, did no small animal. You had to beg them if you want them to sew up your cut up dog. They just practiced out of their truck and did all large animal, nothing else. So that's what I was envisioning when we started here, but we definitely wanted to start in the fall because it was preg checking season. And if we could get a few ranchers to preg check, we knew that we could maybe make a go of this practice. We have made a successful large and small animal practice, but us starting out, definitely, if we wouldn't have had the cattle here, when we go to meetings and we talk to other colleagues and they say, where do you live? What's the population? And they just look at us like, how in the world do you make a living there? And we say, because there are how many thousand cows in this county. So it definitely has made our practice profitable, but also our work ethic. In the fall, when when his family calls and says, can we come visit on Sunday? And we say, we work 7 days a week. And they say, oh, but we're talking about Sunday. Well, there's only 7 days in a week, and Sunday is one of those days. For the question that's brought up about people who are not able to get veterinary care, it doesn't matter to us whether you have 5 cows or whether you have 2,000 cows. We will get you in somehow or the other. We come to work at 6 in the morning. If we have to, we watch the time change in the fall and we say, now we got to start earlier in the morning, or because the daylight runs out. We work from dawn to dusk. I'd also like to, I'd like to say that Laura Pearson is Senator Pearson is a client of ours. I could get this article to her to pass out to everybody, but maybe some of you have seen him. It's in the Livestock Market Digest, and the title of it is This an Emergency? And it's about the large animal veterinary shortage. So it says only 5% of veterinarians right now are food animal veterinarians. They're about 25% of the counties in the United States are underserved, but this was the big one to me. 50% of rural vets are within 5 years of retirement. So these kids getting out of veterinary school now, when they're looking at at, I know this has all been brought up before, but when they're looking at what they can make in a small animal practice, and they don't have to take any emergencies. Because if you're in a big enough city, you've got emergency clinic that takes your emergencies. So to choose to go into large animal practice, it's a big commitment. It's a huge commitment. And I think there are kids that are looking at that, but I also think if Wyoming does adopt this, it would not be a state that you would be looking to go to. You would be looking to go to a state where lay preg checking was not allowed. I'm just saying, like, the lay preg checker is not going to come do your C-sections at 3 a.m. when you need a calf cut out of a cow. They're not going to come when your horse is cut up. They're not going to come take care of, I mean, we do small animal too, but we take care of their pets also. We take care of their working dogs, their barn cats that are the mousers. It's all tied together.
Thank you. Appreciate your testimony.
Well, one more thing I wanted to bring up really quickly.
Real quick, please.
Health certificates. So if you're not the one that preg checked those cows, if you're writing a health certificate for open cows and somebody else preg checks them, you are, I don't know a veterinarian that would put their signature on the line and put their license at risk that these cows are open if you're not the one that preg checked them and some lay person did. If it was another veterinarian that you know, you maybe would do it, or probably that veterinarian would write the health certificate, but you run into that problem also.
Thank you. I appreciate that expertise and that testimony. Questions, committee? Okay, thank you. Appreciate you being here. Next,
Dr. Weaver.
Dr. Weaver, please go ahead.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, but we can't see you.
Can you see me now?
Yep, go ahead.
All right, thank you guys for having me today. So I think that you guys have heard a lot of my talking points, and some really good discussion on both ends of this. There is one big thing that as a vet, every animal that I touch is insured. And whereas a lay person is not going to have that kind of insurance to cover that animal, to cover the people that are working there, both the liability and for the actual animal. The other thing that somebody had discussed is, it is hard for ranch kids to get to vet school, and I can say that I did it. Growing up, my favorite subjects were lunch and recess. And so my grades were not great. I made it through vet school. I did the work. I kissed my 20s goodbye in order to learn a service that I could bring back to this community. And that's what I did. And if you allow just anybody to preg test animals and do other services, it devalues what I did. I had a lot of friends that did not go to vet school, and they had a lot of fun during their 20s. They had families during their 20s. They made mortgage payments. They paid off houses. And all I did was acquire debt. And it just devalues what I do. And then you have someone that says, well, I don't need a veterinarian to preg test. But then at 3 a.m., like, Janet had said, now they're calling you saying, hey, can you leave your family and come out here and help me with my animal? I don't make money at those. I can't afford to have a business in the springtime if I don't make the money in the fall. And my business does revolve around the fall and my fall work and preg testing and that season, so that I can afford to stay in business during the spring and during the rest of the season and the year, because the cattle work is very, very seasonal. And as far as the shortage, the veterinary shortage areas, some areas there is a reason why there's a shortage in that area. There are some producers that you will hear from that say, I cannot get a veterinarian. There's a reason for that. They didn't pay their bill last year, so I didn't answer their phone call this year. There can be other reasons than there is just veterinarians. And like a lot of people have been saying, that there is a shortage in this area because there's too much work for one person, but there's not enough income to pay for 2 veterinarians. And so we have to protect that income for these veterinarians, including preg checking, but also so that they're available to do other stuff. Because if you take my preg testing away from me, I'm not going to stay in business to be able to provide those other services throughout the rest of the year.
Thank you. Appreciate that testimony. Appreciate you being with us and taking time out of your day. Committee,
Absolutely.
questions? Okay, thank you. Next.
Mr. Chairman, you can ask anybody else online to raise their hand if they'd like to speak. I don't see anyone else.
Okay, if you're online, if you'll raise your hand if you'd like to speak on this issue. Okay, if not, that will conclude our public testimony. Committee. Did I hear a Mr. Chairman?
Up front.
Yes. We do got to kind of keep it brief because we're way over time, but please. Go ahead, introduce yourself and go ahead.
Thank you for having me. My name is Travis Clyde. I am a cattle producer on Sweetwater, in the Sweetwater Valley. That was my daughter that wants to do this. I heard a lot of testimony from the veterinarians. I've never seen a vet diagnose trichomoniasis or brucellosis with their arm in the backside of a cow. We have producers in our area that have went to preg testing their own cattle because you cannot get a vet. We have the greatest vet there is. He's awesome. I use him. He works around our schedule. I feel that this is something that with the way it's written now, I can go day work for somebody and stick my arm in their cow and it's legal. But I can't hang my shingle out on the wall and say, hey, I put the investment in, I bought the equipment, I went through the training. This young lady works for me. She's very busy. She's doing very well for herself. She does not have time to go to vet school, nor does she want to. But what I have told our kids, and there's several of them, that the ranch will not support all of you. It is a base for you to launch from. Find something that you're passionate about, that you want to do. And if you want to be part of the ranch, you're probably going to have an additional income to that cow. This is where this whole subject derived from. The vets are great. I pay more for trick testing than I do for preg testing. I see our vet several times a year. We run in big country. Sometimes it takes a month to get to where we need to be. There's long ways between corrals. If my vet that we use cannot make it, and I know of somebody that is available that I trust, there's vets that I will not allow stick their arm in my cow. That's the way it is. It's no different with this. If somebody goes through the training, they have the experience, they have the want to be out there with the snow blowing sideways and stick their arm in a cow, more power to them. Let's keep these kids, give them another avenue to stay where we're at. So all these big ranches, as far as ranch kids, all these big ranches aren't owned by these conglomerate outfits that they're never going to see a family there unless they're managing and they're working on it. Let's try to think about that in this whole process. And the vets will always be there. We'll never not need them. There's so many things, bangs vaccinating, trick testing, everything that goes through there that they have to do. Our veterinarian's been looking for somebody for years. Nobody's available. So that is what I would like to say about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I think there's a question here for you.
Yeah, thank you. Are you telling us that the free market system works?
I would hope so. I would really hope that it would work out. I mean, we all know that if somebody works on your vehicle and does a sorry job of it, you're not taking it back there. If somebody, you have, I don't care if they're a veterinarian, preg test your cows and you're not happy with them for whatever reason, you're not going to have them back. I myself, I know what our preg rates are in the year. If I have a huge percentage of opens, I know that. We're going to dig deeper. We're going to say, well, we this or that or whatever. It seems to me that it's just common sense. We're going to, the free market will figure it out. But you have young people that are wanting to do something, willing to do something. Let's not stop that. Give them the chance. They will. There's people that do it already under the table. We all know that. We all know who they are. And they do a good job. The ones that don't, are going to do it more than a couple times. So thank you.
Thank you. Very much appreciate that. Questions? Yeah, thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be with us. Okay, committee, where do we want to go with this? Want to keep having the discussions and things like that? Do we have any motions on the table? What's the preference of the committee? Go ahead, Representative Altman. Nope. There you go.
That was working. Okay. Honestly, Mr. Chairman and committee, I'm not exactly sure where it would fit in here, like if it would be something that you referenced kind of at the very beginning of this meeting. What I am hoping is that we could come to something that would open it up, that with like with the program that Ms. Clyde was talking about, it is to use a specific ultrasound technique and to have the training with that. And it is a intense training to do that. So I'm not saying everybody would, but I would like to have it where we know more about what those trainings are. I don't know if this would be our next meeting. Some examples of what they're doing in other states, because I heard that referenced in a couple other states. They're looking into it because there is such a deficit. And to have the opportunity for young people to go to different vet schools, that's great, but 4 or 5, and then the taxpayers are paying for all their training, you know, that's interesting. So what I would like to do is I would just like to have something that might open this up. So whether it's to get more information or whatever, to see how we could open this, it would be on their own dime, the training and whatever, but so how would you suggest?
So if I'm understanding kind of what you want, we want information compiled for our next meeting. Maybe we have LSO kind of see what information is out there, and you want that presented before us at our next meeting. Is that kind of what I'm understanding?
Yes, and not to make a whole day meeting of it, but just to say these are currently this is being done with this type of equipment and this type of training, whether it's a certification through a community college, whether it's through the, because I mean, when you go to certain centers, pregnancy centers, or you go to certain industries, even a doctor's office, a lot of times the salesmen are the one that train for different types of equipment. So for the ultrasound machines and stuff like that. So why couldn't that be done with cows? So anyway, so yes, that's basically what I'm saying. Some examples of certifications that may work, that are working somewhere else, that are already, the research has already been done. And so that we can just have some options to say, is this something we want to open? And maybe where would it fit into the current statute? And I don't see that it's going to be, we've heard testimony from the vets that it's not an easy job. I mean, that isn't a job that somebody's going to want to do in the middle of a snowstorm or 20 below zero or whatever. So it's not like there's going to be an influx of it, but I would like to open that opportunity if we can for the people of Wyoming.
Okay, thank you, Representative Altman. Further discussion committee on this? Where we want to go? Go ahead, Senator Taft.
Mr. Chairman, it would be interesting to hear what producers' insurance companies have to say about this as well, as far as disease transmission and other issues in a producer's scenario. I believe that's the one testimony we haven't heard. Getting them to weigh in would be valuable.
Thank you. I agree. That would need to be part of the discussion. Absolutely. Go ahead, Representative Straub.
Thank you, Chairman. I think really, honestly, what we're talking here, and the government is in everything we do. They came and tell us, oh, someone can't start their own little business, where we stifle free market all the time. And they're even in a sense in the producer's business. If I want to take the risk to go get anyone to come check my cattle, and the government saying, no, you can't go check our cattle. Why is every step, everything we do, they're in our business? And I think that's kind of what we were talking about. Is this a free market thing? Is it them in our business? Are we pulling back some regulations? I did get a hold of through some of this. Ask my son. He's the one running the cow part. I have the sheep, and then we have some milk cows now. And I said, what would you do? And he said, I would still use our veterinarian because I trust him. I know who they are and where. I don't know anyone that does it. So where am I even going to get someone anyway? But we always have the government so in it. It's kind of like the free choice. I mean, that's what you're talking. You've taken away producers' decisions, choices, and telling them, we know better than you do all the time. So I think it's something we really need to look at if we're going to just pull back some regulations that the government put on us. And people push for, people still trust their veterinarians. My son still trusts them. And so I think it's something we do need to look at it from that aspect of it and really get some discussion here.
Further discussion? Go ahead, Senator Ide.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for those comments from Senator Representative Strzok. I kind of tend to agree with a lot of that. If we're gathering information, I would like to see a little more information on how, if we're going to amend this statute or whatever, that it's more of a, is the Clyde's testimony, the Latin term caveat emptor, where let the buyer beware. And I think that that's what free markets are all about. And I think we really need to take a hard look at it that way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Further discussion? Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with Senator Ide, and I think we need to hopefully fix this problem.
Thank you. Further discussion? So the path forward I heard presented by Representative Altman. If the committee is good with that, we will have LSO on if you're clear of kind of what Representative Altman requested. Are you clear with that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think we're good.
Okay, as well as I think Senator Love wanted the insurance portion to be a part of it too. I think that's also important if we can include that.
Right. We'll either do the research on that or find somebody who can come and present at the next meeting.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. Committee, we good with that? Okay. Sounds good. What? Okay, we will give a 5-10 minute. 10-minute break. We will be back at 11:20 to start on orphan water rights. Right, committee, if we could get things back going here. The committee could find their chairs, please.
My kids think I've already.
Are we ready on your end? Oh, okay, perfect. We will come back to order here. The next thing on the agenda is orphan water rights. And I think that was brought to us by Mr. Kennedy. So, gentlemen, come on down and the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, Keith Kennedy for Wyoming Association of Irrigation Districts. You have a informal draft in front of you, and we discussed this at some length at the meeting a year ago in Powell. So I don't want to repeat that, and we'd like to try and catch you up a little bit on your schedule here as well. The draft as it stands, there are two things. One mentioned in there and that we believe should be added is the amount of time for a district to respond. And we believe that should be 60 days would be a limit. Otherwise, the district would forfeit any right to any further claims. The other issue is that if subdivision or subdivider and the district did not agree, how should that be resolved? And after speaking with the state engineer, we think that the solution to that is most likely should be district court, because it probably will not be with respect to the water right itself. Most likely it would be with respect to easements or to the size of parcels. And with respect to that, I'll turn it over to one of our board members here to explain their agreement with Bureau of Reclamation.
Yeah, I'm Rick Herman with the Wyoming Association of Irrigation Districts, Vice Chair. So with Casper Alcova Irrigation District, we're governed by the BOR, and within our contract, we cannot deliver to parcels under 10 acres. And that's as of 1984, I believe. So with the subdivisions, If they go below that, we're not obligated to deliver water in the first place.
And I guess to clarify, does that mean that you're not allowed to, or that you?
We're not to, yes. So if there's more than one, no matter the size of the parcel, more than one person on a delivery system, whether it's a head gate or weir, whatever it is, then that requires a water master, whether it's 2 people or 10 people. And the conveyances within the subdivisions are typically not being implemented, not being put in place.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for my benefit, since I wasn't here, I don't want you to go through 3 hours of testimony, but 2-minute synopsis of what you're trying to accomplish and where you've been, where you're going.
Go ahead, Chairman. In the past, some subdivisions, and there are some things that are currently exempt, which the initial portion of that discusses. Family division is one such exception. And the issue arises where there is a portion of the water right attached, let's say to the corner of a quarter that's now center pivot irrigated. And that was divided off for another family member. 20 years down the road, that moves, but the water right was never redone with respect to that change of surface ownership. So what we would like to see is all of these issues settled at the time that there's any sort of division where the water rights should have been clarified, the irrigated acres. And that's the basics of what we'd like to see. I mentioned to someone earlier that all of these things dealing with water rights, we keep working at the edge, and we eat the elephant at a very small bite at a time. We worked on several things that the state engineer could speak to you about in 21 and 22, and we keep trying to clarify this and fix issues that have arisen. And most of the issues are these rights that get stranded when either an annexation takes place to a municipality or there's a rural subdivision created. And we just want to see those dealt with at the time of those divisions rather than trying to go back and fix them retroactively. At some point, hopefully, maybe not in my lifetime, we will get most of those cleared up. But we also want to make sure that we keep those rights active in Wyoming as well and keep that water here.
Go ahead, Representative Ottman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kennedy and
Rick? Yep.
Okay, Rick, that's what I wrote down. Rick, are you with Wade?
Yes.
What is, okay. If I remember correctly, one of the questions is when in this process that the irrigation company would be involved? Would it be when the person or entity goes to the county planning or the commissioners or whatever? Do you remember that? And it seemed to me that that was one of the steps that was kind of confusing, is to say, okay, who would require this request and who would fill it out and when would it be? Because I mean, it's a good idea. It's a good idea, but when would it happen?
Mr. Chairman, we believe that it should happen with the initial application or filing that took place. And to be clear, counties are not required to have a planning and zoning department and or commission. In some counties, it actually would go directly to the commissioners. But we believe that it should take place at the first step in the division process. And yes, this would require some more time, especially with respect to those exempt divisions that are named there in that first portion of that draft that you have. Because there are some small divisions that don't require any input other than a filing. And we believe that people should be told up front when they go in to file, you need to resolve the water rights here.
Further questions, committee? So I've got one, if I remember our discussion from the PAL meeting. Down there on D, when it says the application shall include recommendation from the irrigation district regarding changes and talks about conflicts. This isn't giving irrigation districts veto power over subdivisions, is it?
Mr. Chairman, it is not. It simply says that the water rights involved with the division have to be resolved before it can move forward. And that was the one thing that we did not place in that draft. And as I mentioned a moment ago, those that probably requires district court if the parties can't come to a resolution. For example, if someone were to come to Mr. Herman and they couldn't resolve it because they wanted to have lots that were 8 acres, it would seem to me fairly clear to the subdivider, yes, you have to make these all 10 acres if you wish to irrigate them. Otherwise, they can't be, and you need to resolve those, what happens with the rights on those particular acres that are less than 10 acres. But Mr. Herman is constrained by that agreement with Bureau of Reclamation. And the other issue with that is every district may be different. And some districts don't have that requirement from Bureau of Reclamation. Some may not even be involved with the Bureau of Rec as well. So they may have their own internal rules for any change of diversions that they might have to make as well.
Thank you.
Pardon me, Mr. Chairman, we're not trying to overly complicate this. We just want to resolve those, make sure that those are resolved at the time of the divisions.
Thank you. Further questions? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This really doesn't pertain to this exactly, but just out of curiosity, what's the mechanism for when you do get the right back? Do you pay for the right? Do you pay for the rights as the district to get them back, or, and if so, you redistribute them in some way within the district? What happens to these rights?
Go ahead.
Yeah, the rights don't belong to the district necessarily. It's to the land and the landowner, or the water rights is what you're asking, right? So that's up to the landowner, the way I understand it, to deal with the state on that, state engineer's office.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just quickly, Mr. Kennedy just mentioned that we didn't want to give up the water rights for the state as a whole. And so I'm wondering, how do we then put them to beneficial use if they're no longer being used as irrigated acres in a subdivision?
Mr. Chairman, most of these districts, especially the ones that are under the BOR, actually have many acres within the district that are not irrigated that could be. So those rights could be reassigned to another area, or for example, I have gravity flow irrigation on a place and I want to switch to center pivot. I may actually pick up, may actually pick up some more acres that those acres could be transferred over and used because I've increased the irrigated acres on at another location within the district.
Go ahead, Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you're talking just irrigation districts in specific, not across the whole state of Wyoming. So, because if we change something here, wouldn't it apply across the whole state, not just specifically irrigation districts?
Mr. Chairman, this is specific to districts, and the next bite out of the elephant is the direct diversions that an individual ranch might have on whether that's storage or direct flow. And I think we have to take this small bites at a time and not mess it up. It's going to be easier where we have a formal structure here rather than where it's an individual appropriator rather than a district to deal with. And think of someone who is a direct diverter. They're not as, they would most likely have to hire somebody to help with this. The other thing about that is, in those cases, that is property that they already own. So do they want to lose, or do they want to make that part of the subdivision that they're making, that these are grounds that can still remain irrigated and those water rights accrue to those acres that they have sold off? Does that, Mr. Chairman, does that make sense? So if I'm a direct diverter, I have an acreage where I irrigate. And if there's a subdivision taking place, it's on my property. It's not on someone else's property where they're selling the use of the service. So they should be well aware that they have water rights that are attached to that land that they're subdividing. And that would be resolved internally.
Further questions? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, through you. So as I think through this, anytime we convey property in any sale or transaction or subdivision, you look at the water rights that exist, and if they exist in that quarter section, then you have to somehow address those, whether you retain those water rights or whether you let the water rights go with that property. And if you only sell half of that 40, then say you have 40 acre feet on that 40 acres, and you decide you're going to keep all of the water rights, that user then doesn't have water rights because the owner kept them and is going to reach out to the state engineer to put that onto a different piece of property. And what you're saying is that they're never doing that. They're selling this off, they're subdividing the property and never releasing that water to the new owner and not settling that issue of water rights beforehand.
Mr. Chairman, in the case of the districts, they currently don't have necessarily anything other than just consulting on a subdivision. And we would like to make certain that those rights are dealt with at the time of the division, whether they're left there, whether they're moved or taken care of in some manner. And the statute's fairly specific, the 4 ways that they can do that. But this addresses a difficulty where the landowner is not a direct diverter, where they are a member of an irrigation district. And that's what we're very specific about, that it's that situation rather than private land holding with a water right that is attached to that parcel of property.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if I'm following you correctly, you have X amount of water in the system. Okay, and then we have a subdivision that frees up X amount of acres because it would no longer be irrigated, i.e. a shop, a home, a road, et cetera, but we don't want to lose X amount of water rights, even though they're out of the system, even though they're not being applied to the original intent. Is that what you're talking about here?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Okay, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Further questions? Go ahead, Senator Hyde.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You made a comment, Mr. Kennedy, about handled internally, and right now it's more of a consulting supervisory aspect of the irrigation district. How would that change that supervisory moving forward on this amendment? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Senator, essentially this statute says that they must be dealt with in some manner beforehand. And I guess what I would point to is some cities where land has been annexed and there are acreages that are still on the books that are treated as irrigated acres, but they have houses on them now and they're in small subdivisions. There's no irrigation takes place. We aren't trying to address those that happened in the past. We just want to prevent that in the future. And so we think that those should be, it should be clear that they have to be dealt with before the subdivision's final approval.
Further questions? Okay, gentlemen, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can I reiterate
Go
something
ahead.
real quick? Thank you. So the purpose of this goes back to what's on the agenda on the orphan water rights. And I think that's the goal here, is to keep these water rights from getting orphaned in the first place, because it's such a process to get them undone and put back into beneficial use. So if we can overcome that's the goal of this. And it protects the irrigation districts. It protects the buyers, the sellers, the developers in the first place to get it right.
Thank you. Questions? Go ahead.
One last clarification I'm looking for here. So the water that you're talking about is the water that is authorized by the state of Wyoming through a water right to specific said lands. And you don't want to lose that authorization or orphanage or abandonment. Is that what you're talking?
Exactly. If we can keep these water rights active and keep these irrigation districts justifiable so we don't lose our water. I didn't catch your name on the end there, but to go back with your question on the subdivider keeping the water rights, the water rights are stuck with the land unless they go through the process to move those through the state engineer's office, which is quite a process. So they can't just sell the land and obtain the water rights as a mineral right would maybe.
Good. Further questions? Come on down. Mr. Gebhardt. Floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Brandon Gebhardt, Wyoming State Engineer. And I'm just sensing some confusion as to what's going on. So I thought maybe I would try to explain at least what I think I understand the Association of Irrigation Districts is doing. So the work that was done in 21 and 22 involved Titles 18 and 15, particularly to the subdivision, and then requirements, made stricter requirements on how to handle those water rights so that they wouldn't get orphaned. And it provided 4 paths for a developer that if he was developing on lands that had irrigated lands or water rights attached to those lands, that they could voluntarily abandon the water right. They could change the beneficial use or the place of use. So they could convert it from irrigation to municipality in some cases, or they could, through petition with Board of Control, move those water righted lands to some other place. They could also then had the option to detach the water rights through an authorization to detach water rights. And finally, they could distribute those water rights on the lands within the development. And so the work that we did was to establish that when those are developed, that the water rights had to be taken care of. And I believe what the Association of Irrigation Districts is trying to do is to have a say in when that occurs within a district, when those changes to the water rights occur within the district, they want a say in how those are handled through one of these 4 ways. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that that's really what they're trying to get at. And I hope that helps clarify and answer any questions, but that's my understanding of the intent.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Gebhardt, that was good information there actually for me, and I should know this question, but what happens if, say, the farmer has the water rights, he sells it to a developer, he reserves the water rights, and can he sit on those water rights for a period of time, or can he even do that? I guess that's my question. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, Mr. Chairman, he would have to do some sort of a change. If the land that he sold to the developer had those water rights, he's got options to change that. So he could transfer that to another location. He could use any of the 4. He could voluntarily abandon it if he chooses to, but he can make changes to that depending on what changes he wants to do. He would have to go through us to do that, the state engineer or the Board of Control, depending on the situation. But you don't, I think your question is sell the land and then the water rights that are associated with that, those have to be dealt with. And that's what the work in Title 15 and 18 talks about.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick follow-up. If that person decides that holds that water right and makes the decision to abandon it, how do you handle that at the state engineer's office with an abandoned water right? Thank you.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Ide, if that's what he chooses to do, it's either a petition, if it's an adjudicated right, it's a petition to the Board of Control where he's basically saying, I want to voluntarily abandon that water right. That water right then goes away. If it's unadjudicated, it goes through the state engineer's office and either an expert cancellation of the permit for that water right. So the water right goes away under that situation.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if we transfer that water right to a different piece of ground, would it have to go through the whole adjudication process in order for it to be approved, demonstrate beneficial use, et cetera, is my question.
Mr. Chairman, it would have to go through the petition process through the Board of Control to change the use or place of use. Yes.
Further questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, through you, Mr. Gebhardt. Earlier, the statement was made that it's cumbersome to move that from one property to another. Is there a way to simplify that, or what makes that so complex? If you have let's say we've got a half a section, we've got a center pivot on one quarter that touches the highway. We're going to develop that. And we just want to move it to the quarter straight west of it and continue the same use. Is that a difficult process to make that move?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Love, I think it depends on the specifics of the situation. It's hard to say that it's simple or it's hard. I think just the facts and circumstances around the existing and the new place of use, it varies greatly.
Representative Ottman, did you have something?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just for whomever, uh, what I seem to remember and recall was that where there was problem was that we're getting a lot of rural subdivisions. And so they were going through county planning or through municipality or through an owner and through a real estate agent and things, and water was just left out there. And so sometimes there would be usage and different things that was not discussed. And if I recall, this says that the application shall include recommendations from the irrigation district regarding any changes. And what I seem to remember is that I thought this was a good idea because maybe the county commissioners or maybe the planning doesn't really talk about this or realize it's a big deal, and they just do their part of the job. And then there's all of this up in the air, and I had some people in Riverton that got a notice that there was going to be a lien put on their property. It was like $98 because they didn't pay their irrigation. And so they were like, I don't have irrigation. But nevertheless, the way that things had happened over the years, that was just part of it. And so what I thought with this amendment and the discussion was that this was to explain so that all the players in the county knew what was going on and that things were done properly, not to put our water at risk, but also that these subdivisions weren't just thrown up haphazardly without taking into consideration where irrigation canals might be, irrigation ditches. Am I making too big a deal about that? That's what I thought it was for.
You want to take that?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. It is, you're right. That happens a lot. People don't want to use it, don't want to pay for it. And I mean, we deal with it at CADE, Casper Cove Irrigation District. I was wanting to go back to what Brandon said, just to clarify a little bit too, that it's not Wade that's wanting to make those decisions. It's Wade's here for the irrigation districts, so the irrigation district can make those decisions. So I want to go back to when this gets subdivided, maybe turned into industrial also, and what happens is they sell that land, they put up buildings, parking lots, whatever, and then when it comes time to maybe they do decide to want to move those water rights, reappropriate them somewhere else, with the laws, the way my understanding is, and you can clarify, that land has to be irrigated again before the water rights can be moved, which becomes impossible at that point in a parking lot building situation, runways, whatever. That's my understanding on it.
Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are we talking, and maybe I'm missing something here, orphaned wells or stranded water rights? Is there a difference between those, is my question.
Who wants to take that one?
If you're asking about a stranded water right being a piece of land where the ditch may be severed and it can't get to that, that is probably a little bit different than the orphan water rights that we're talking about. In those cases, that largely becomes a civil issue of the appropriator who had his ditch intercepted would have to go through some other means to make sure that he can get his water to his field.
Everybody clear as mud? Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Brandon? Okay, public testimony. We have public testimony on this bill, on this topic. Come on down, Ms. Clark. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Karen Clark with the Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation. Our member-driven policy supports the efforts to amend this work here. Our members have asked for, districts to be able to have that opportunity to change the place of use and support legislation that would protect irrigation water rights from abandonment. So again, we sit in support of protecting that Wyoming water and keeping it at beneficial use. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Clark? Okay, thank you for your testimony. Further testimony in the room? Okay, we'll go online.
Mr. Chairman, I have Kelly Kennedy.
Okay, Ms. Kennedy.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chairman, and the
Morning.
committee. My name is Kelly Kennedy, live in Wheatland, Wyoming. My son and I own an operation that we bought in 14. Trying to get down through the list here, but I come to you today to speak about the process or lack thereof of transferring water rights that have been orphaned and are unused due to development and agricultural use lands. In 2014, we bought the Burnett Ranch along Sabile Creek. In 2020, we identified a piece of ground on top of the hill that we had been using tailwater to irrigate and decided to put in a pivot. We had talked to other people and said it was not that hard to move water rights. So we went ahead and started talking to people and acquiring water rights and putting in a pivot, setting it up, moving the power lines, and everything. Next, we hired Dan Kennedy, a surveyor, to transfer the water rights. And he surveyed everything on the lands it was coming from and the lands it was going to. Took it to the state engineers and started transferring process. At that time, and many times since then, I've been told that if we had illegally irrigated it for 3 years, there'd be no problem. But since we asked the question, there's a problem. We have attended many meetings and finally the Board of Control said through application that we could maybe start moving the water rights, would stay. And so we did all that and we irrigated it 2 years with that. And then they told us that, or indicated that it would be better for us to drop it, go ahead and irrigate 1 more year and then return with our permit. We're under the Wheatland Irrigation District, which is the largest privately owned irrigation district in the United States. It will not make 1 acre-foot difference of water to the state of Wyoming, whether that they actually let us apply this and move these water rights to where they are beneficial use. And so I strongly advise this board to help us with this situation. We have irrigated it for 4 years now, and we are supposed to meet with the Board of Control again in August, and I hope they let us move this water rights. We have spent amazing amount of money and time on this process, and we need to make it more simple. We need to be able to move these water rights out from under subdivisions and put them to where we can use them to beneficial use. And I don't know. I so strongly, we gotta keep the water rights in Wyoming. We cannot orphan these water rights, and we cannot just sign them away either. There's somebody that can use them. We gotta work with us though, and we've moved water rights many times in the past, the irrigation district has. Sometimes they move just the storage rights, but we really need to move all the direct flow rights too, so they aren't orphaned in one thing or another. But yes, please help us.
Thank you. Appreciate that testimony. Questions, committee? Thank you. Appreciate you being here and for your testimony, sir. Further test? Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, through you, Mr. Kennedy, I did get your phone message and I apologize I didn't get back to you yesterday. Is this a subdivision issue then? Are you trying to move water rights that were in a subdivision and now you need to put them on a different location?
They've come from quite a few different places, but yeah, a lot of subdivisions or places they were going to subdivide and they had and can no longer, some of them are where they've done away with the ditch and couldn't get the water to them too. But yeah, I have already paid these people for their water rights because they said that after 3 years, I would be able to move these water rights. This has not happened for sure, but we got to make this easier to do so we don't lose these water rights, really. And like I say, at the end of the day, it's Wheatland Irrigation District. It should not matter that much to the state where we apply the water once it's in our head gates. I mean, we are not asking for any more water. We are just utilizing the water that is coming and moving it where they cannot use it to where we can use them beneficially.
Good. Follow up?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So you've collected water rights from different locations that have been under beneficial use. Are they still currently under beneficial use before the move? Or had they stopped watering that ground before you acquired them to move them?
They had stopped irrigating them before I got them. We ended up with 68 acres, and I don't remember, there's 15 different places they came from, I think. So.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
Senator Hyde.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kennedy, have you looked at these amendments that are proposed on these subdivision statutes? And if you have, do you think that helps expedite maybe future transfers of orphaned water rights, in your opinion? Thank you.
I have not really had the chance to go through it. I've heard little bits and pieces of it, and I agree that up front, this should have been handled. It should have not went this long with these water rights not being used. But it's amazing people are people. One person I talked to, they got a half acre. I was trying to buy their water rights. They're like, oh no, we want to hold on to it, even though there is no physical way to get the water to them, and they will not deliver that small of amount of water. And part of what Wheatland Irrigation District has done in the past is there's storage rights. And so we do store all that water, even if it can't be applied to those acres. Other people in the district can buy that water for that year, pay the taxes and move it to other properties to use. And so most all these waters have been used, all of them have been used in the district other than the direct flow right.
Other questions? Okay, Mr. Kennedy, appreciate your testimony for being here with us today.
Thank you.
Further testimony? Nope. Okay, with that, we'll close public testimony. Committee, what direction do we want to go with this? Move the amendments presented,
I'll second it.
seconded by Representative Strzok. Discussion on the proposed amendments. Anna, you've got that? Okay.
It's only this note on the-
Yeah. But these.
this note that your insurance wants to place it.
Is there any discussion on the proposed amendments brought to us? Go ahead, Representative Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to get with the Board of Control and see how this sits currently with Wyoming water law to see if it's even has legs to do. If that makes, I don't know, that's my opinion on it. I'd like to see if it does even have legs to do. I think there's a lot more questions out here than just what we're talking about in the process to gather up these water rights and put them on a piece of ground that wasn't currently irrigated. So that'd be, I think there's a process. I just want to make sure that it's straight with existing water law.
Any other comments on that one? I'm not sure if we got answers to that now or if we want to find them in the end. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Keith Kennedy, this bill doesn't address that. And there's a reason that we didn't try to address it here. This is about when any division takes place in the future where a water right would be affected and essentially says, you must do this beforehand. And there are a couple of things that I think do need added to what we presented as a draft. And one is the time limit for the response from the irrigation districts. We discussed it and initially it talked about 45 days. We think 60 days is probably the most fair, bearing in mind the difference in from district to district. Some are small, some are very large with full-time staff, but 60 days would give a district time to meet twice to consider their responses to the divider. The other issue is how to resolve this if the divider and the district cannot come to an agreement. And our discussion has been that it most likely should require one or the other party to go to district court to resolve it. For example, as Mr. Herman mentioned, they have a restriction under their contract with BOR. If a subdivider is insisting that lot sizes be 5 acres and that people are able to irrigate those, it's clearly against the contract that Casper Alcova has with the BOR. And so they clearly can't do that and keep their contract in place. So the subdivider would either have to find some other means to move those within the district and simply not irrigate it because they can't. The district can't allow that according to their contract. So, and those circumstances vary from district to district. They are not consistent across the board. So we think that that is probably the best way to resolve this if the divider and the district can't come to a resolution on their own. And clearly, neither a subdivider or the district wants to go to court. So there is that encouragement for them to resolve it in some manner or another without resorting to court. But I think we also think that that needs to be clear, though, that that is where it should be settled, because more than likely, the issue is going to be with regards to easements and those sort of things rather than the water right itself.
Thank you for clarifying that for us. Cleared up, Bob?
Clear as mud. But Mr. Chairman, I'd like LSO to maybe get some expertise on this and bring back some further information on what the ramifications if we do it this way, because currently we've just had two different instances. Prior water rights being gathered up and put on a different piece of ground, and you're talking about something new going forth. So I'd like a little clarity between the two things there as what we're actually attempting to do.
Mr. Chairman, what we're attempting to do is, and in this instance where Mr. Kennedy spoke of, when those parcels were divided, we believe that in that case, that wheatland irrigation should have been consulted, and they should have resolved those water rights at the time, not after the fact. And that's essentially what we want to do with this bill.
Now, we do have a motion on the table, so Bob, if you wanted to make that as an amendment or something?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a second on, do you want to just restate that for LSO's satisfaction?
Anna, could you restate that to me? Did you get all that?
Okay. Mr. Chairman, Representative Davis, basically, you would like just to know what the ramifications of the current language would be?
Mr. Chairman, that would be a good starting point.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before we vote, that last discussion on, wanting to stay out of court is a big concern, actually. Just, it could be, I obviously agree it needs to be settled beforehand, but you could get personality differences that on either side of the table that hold this thing up, and it ends up getting locked up in court forever. So I don't know how you rectify that, but I just wanted to bring that up. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So we got an amendment by Representative Davis here. Do we have a second on his proposed amendment? Second? Hearing none, I would say that seconded? Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I'll second it just so we get the information. Senator Ottman, did you make a motion on it?
Made the motion to approve this.
So we've got this. Now we're working on an amendment to this motion. Are they compatible?
go.
Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Love, it's not really an amendment. It's more just information based on the proposed language that we already have. So basically, we could break that into two different assignments for LSO, one for a memo, another for the bill draft, if you'd like to do it that way. So.
I heard somebody say, Mr. Chairman, go ahead.
I don't think they're totally related, and I think we have to vote on the first amendment, and then if there's another amendment, we can bring that amendment. It's pretty hard to amend an amendment. Because what if we had a third one? Amend the amendment to amend the second amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So my understanding was this was moved as a bill draft. And he proposed an amendment to the bill draft, was kind of my understanding. And if I'm wrong,
Mr. Chairman, and Representative Davis can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he just wants information about the proposed language to see if there's any ramifications either regarding water law or maybe even federal law that this proposed language might bring up. So I think it'd be best to vote on the proposed language and then come back and vote and see if you guys want that information.
okay. Works for me. So now discussion on this proposal here. We'll stick to this one for now and then come back to Representative Davis's. So further discussion on this proposal here? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just think we need to figure out what to do on the and maybe that can come later after the initial bill draft, but the kind of the caveat on the end of the proposal, either we need to decide that now or give some latitude to LSO to maybe address those in some type of language in the bill draft. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, point of clarification. The amendments to these statutes is what I believed I was moving, was amendments. This is not particulars or change to really statute. This is to say that when these situations come up, this will be to where there needs to be that conversation between the districts and the subdividers. So it's not putting in a lot of new water statutes or anything like that. And there could be, you know, some kind of thing down the road to say, okay, well, now this is going to happen. But my understanding was this was primarily just to say that there needs to be that conversation between the two entities so that we don't have rules that say 10 acres and a subdivider. I live in a subdivision like that. It's a mess. I can't even get my road done. So anyway, that's kind of what I was saying. This is not to make really new law, but to open up the conversation between the two entities, because we may have county commissioners, we may not. So anyway, that was my understanding.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think perhaps you understood what I was getting at. We have this little piece that Mr. Kennedy had on the end where he was unclear about where it should go and how it should fit. But I think those are both valid questions to be answered as part of this document. I was not referring to Representative Davis's question. So thank you.
Further discussion? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, just right back to that, what Mr. Kennedy brought up there. You know, the previous language said that they shall certify that they will meet in a good faith effort. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Kennedy, that now it's shall certify that they've resolved the conflicts. Those are the two big bullet point changes right there. Thank you.
Further discussion on the proposed amendments? Okay. All in favor of the amendments proposed by Association of Irrigation Districts and the motion by Representative Ottman? All those please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Okay, that has been adopted and we'll hopefully see that for our next meeting in proposed form. Now to the matter that Representative Davis brought up. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I think all I'm looking for would be some simple clarification.
Okay.
So maybe that would simplify anything. It wouldn't be an
Okay.
amendment, would
Just a
just be
request.
additional information.
Okay. Fauna's good with that. I'm good with that. Okay, perfect. Okay, with that, lunchtime, we'll meet back here at 1:30 to discuss federal versus state lands recreational use. We are in recess.